Hello, everybody. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today it is the 1st of November, 2024. It's Friday. It's a Friday show. The weekend's ahead. The weather is finally getting nice and cool here in Phoenix. It happens overnight, by the way. It goes from 90 plus degrees to 72 degrees overnight. That's just pretty much, you get weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of hot temperatures. And then you wake up one day and the high is 72 degrees, 74 degrees. This is the best time of year. So happy it's finally here. I have gone ahead and removed some of the audio filters for suppression and noise because of the air conditioners running, and I can't hear it. It's a whole setup. I have to put on headphones and go through a lot of testing. So I thought I'd let you guys let me know if there's any issue with the audio. Too loud, too quiet, too much background noise, not enough. Appreciate the feedback, and we'll go with the general consensus on that. Welcome into all our friends and members here in the chat room, and first-time viewers, welcome in, everybody. And I just want to say a super shout-out and a thank you to our friend Buster, Peter Laycock, joining us there from Scotland with a super chat contribution of £10. He says, good evening, hello. Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat, all the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature in Edinburgh, Scotland is 49 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 9.4 degrees Celsius, and it's raining and foggy. Man, I haven't seen fog since I lived in California. But I don't miss the fog. I do miss that cool weather, but maybe not that cold. It's a little cold. 49 is a little cold, but still, I'd rather have 49 than, say, 98. That being said, always good to see my friend Buster, and of course a shout out to Tom Jackson, Oystein out there in Norway, Paul Gray down there in Australia, as well as, I'm forgetting somebody, our friend Mark Gaines, our friend Luke Greenia, Frankie B, of course, there in New York. That's who I was forgetting. And yeah, today, so here's a couple days. We had, I have a couple of videos lined up, but just waiting on parts. I can't move forward with these other projects until the parts come in. Lately, Amazon has been horrendous. Horrendous on return, horrendous on delivery, horrendous on even getting the package to the proper front door. I don't know what's going on. And it's happened to our friend Doug Betts over at Live Windows Training with Doug Betts, where he ordered from Amazon, got an empty box. So it's not just me. There's something going on. I imagine it's going to get worse as the holidays ramp up and shopping ramps up. So I'm going to not order so much until next year, but I will order what I need. So Amazon still owes us like 4 more motherboards that have been, they were placed, those orders were placed about 2 weeks ago, at least 10 days ago. And they're still saying we're not going to get those motherboards until sometimes towards the end of next week. Well, I've got everything I need to do the builds except those motherboards. So I don't know who's to blame here. Is it the motherboard manufacturer? Is it Amazon? I don't know. And then once it's shipped, let's hope it arrives with the right product in the box. That's another issue I keep seeing from Amazon. It used to very rarely happen, and now it's like 1 out of every 7 or 8 packages. It's the wrong thing in the box. It's addressed to me. It's not what I ordered. And then let's make sure that when they deliver it to the right address, not to somebody else's house. When I look at the photo of the delivery and it's not my front door, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do. Prowl the neighborhood like a porch pirate looking for a box that is mine and then steal it back? I don't know. I don't like being in that position, prowling around the neighborhood at night with a flashlight, looking at all my neighbors' front porches. I'm sure many of them have cameras that are picking me up, and that can't look good to them, right? It's not like Amazon's going to come and get it and redeliver it to me like they should. You're on your own, buddy. File a police report if you don't like it. That's the answer I get from Amazon now. It used to make it right. Now they don't have any interest. So times they are a-changing. Now, for today's build, what I do have is we had a couple of these 13500 CPUs that I ordered because they were a really good price. And the 13500s were never really affected by the whole voltage issue that we were dealing with. They were never difficult to cool. It would still be in your benefit to update to the latest motherboard BIOS regardless, However, these CPUs were never an issue. All right. So I had ordered and made several systems. I think we've done probably nearly as many 13500s as we did the 9700K back in the day. It was such a good value. And these days, these are actually faster than a 9700K anyway. So I needed some motherboards, and I thought I better get some. So I got the board we've been using before, which is the ASRock B760 Pro. And this is the RS-D4, the D4 meaning it uses DDR4. You don't need to put DDR5 in this, it's just going to raise the price. And then I thought, okay, what do I use for RAM? Well, I've got some RAM that came out of some used systems that were upgraded, and these are all 8 gigs each. So I thought, 16 gigs seems a little low. I don't normally use all 4 banks of RAM, but I don't know that I'll ever use this again. I bought this back in 2021. The customer used it. We upgraded it in 2023. It's been sitting on a shelf. There's nothing wrong with it. So we'll put 4 8 gig sticks in. I mean, why not? We're trying to save money, right? So that's 32 gigs. And I think that's 3200 speed T-Force Team memory. This table should not be moving. And we have, and I don't know where this came from, but a Samsung 980 Pro, which is a Gen 4, 1 terabyte drive. You know, building these computers here on camera and dressing them up with 32 gigs of RAM and a 2 terabyte, you know, even a Beijing drive, which is still, you know, $100 and something, is getting pricey just to have the boards sit around. So because nobody's using them, quite frankly, I want to go through some used parts. This 980 Pro I bought, I think, around December of 2023. It's I don't even think it's a year old yet. I'm not sure. And you can't buy this stuff anymore. I don't think they must make a 980 Pro. I know there's a lot of these with heat sinks on them. So when I'm building on this, I like to use the motherboard heat sinks. They're far superior than any heat sink you can, that's included with an NVMe drive, and it matches the aesthetic of the board, right? Because we have that, most cases have a window now where you can look through and see. We're going to use the cooler that comes with the 13500. It's more than adequate. And we'll use a test power supply. And we're going to prep the board today with the latest BIOS, which I've already downloaded and placed on this flash drive. And we'll use integrated graphics. We're not adding a graphics card to this, but somebody could. So let's say somebody calls me up or emails me and they say, I'd like to buy a system, and I have to know what's your budget and what do you want the system to do. You say, hey, I'm looking for a really good priced gaming PC. Well, I got just the thing. I can take this prep motherboard that we set up today, and I can say, look, if you want the RGB RAM, I can, unclip the RAM. It takes 2 seconds, and we can adjust the price accordingly. Or if that's not important to you, we can just simply add a higher end power supply, depending on which GPU you want to use, and make sure we put it all in a case that will fit that without any problems. So essentially, this is like getting the ingredients ready to go. This is the dough. We're prepping the dough in the morning for our pizza. All the pizzas all going to use the same dough, or whatever dough we offer. We make that in the morning. And then the afternoon and evening, when people call and order the pizza, we have the base, the foundation upon which tell me what you want on your pizza. So this is the foundation for the build. And then when it gets sold or put in, let's say we want to use it around the studio, which case I use, which power supply I use, and whether or not I'm going to add a GPU are all options for us to consider at the end. But in the meantime, when you look at the price of what all of this costs, I think this is the best bang for the buck right now, and it has been throughout 2024, and I think it remains so. With all the attention and focus on the latest and greatest, I just don't see much value there compared to this. Let me give you an example. If we go over to my screen capture mode here, and I want to show you the link for this motherboard. Now understand, motherboards today are starting around $200. That's about right. It's pretty close. The starting price of $100, that's kind of a thing of the past. And I don't mean a long, long time ago, just maybe last year. So if we look to last year, and we're not quite at last year yet. in all fairness. We still have a few months to go. But if we look, we can still get these components. This motherboard is $109.99. Now, by comparison, if we look for a motherboard similar to this, but for the new CPUs, it starts at $199.99 from the same manufacturer going to ASRock. And then, you can get a Wi-Fi version of the board for $209.99. And then they have the Tai Chi and the Tai Chi Lite, which sets you around $400 to $500 for each board. And then, of course, you've got the price of the CPU. The Core i5-13500 is a proven chip, and you're looking at $243, brand new in a box. It's not used. It's a brand new processor under full warranty. It's nothing to shake a stick at. Comes with a cooler, and it comes with a graphics card built into it, right? Built into the CPU. Now, the NVMe drive, they're all over the map on that, depending on what size you want and how fast you want it to go. I'm just going right down the middle with something not particularly large, just a 1 terabyte. But I do want to take advantage of the Gen 4 speeds. And keep in mind, if we look at this motherboard, just to remind you, we have that giant heatsink right there. It says M2 Armor right there in the middle. And if we scroll down, you can see that this supports 2 NVMe's that are Gen 4, an NVMe that's Gen 3, and another NVMe that's only a times. Wait, this can't be right. Hold on, I think I'm reading this wrong. This ain't right. Let me let me scroll down a little bit here. What does it say about storage? I like that we're using DDR4. Unless we were doing like a 900K, something like that, the DDR5 wouldn't really make much difference. Just a waste of money. And it's interesting to me how as soon as you start adding, overclocking abilities, how the price accelerates up so much more. The value just goes away, just so you can get another 7 or 12% of performance, and you can easily spend another 30, 40% in price to do that. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to, we'll look at the manual here, or actually it might just tell us on the back of the box. But I've been really, really happy with ASRock. That's been my motherboard of choice throughout most of last year and this year. I think they have better offerings for the money. Not that anything is wrong with the other manufacturers. This is just my personal preference for price, value. I like the BIOS, I like the layout, I like the aesthetics. I like the reliability, the performance of it, the features. I think you just get the best value from the money overall from ASRock. Especially if you compare ASRock's Tai Chi board to MSI's Godlike board or Asus's ROG Hero. ASRock falls way below in price with similar capable motherboards. USB 4, you want it, you got it. You want Thunderbolt, they got it. You want Wi-Fi 7, they got it. You want, all these super high-end boards, they're easily, $700 and more. So for the Tai Chi Lite board to start in at $399 is a bargain. But tying or pairing a Tai Chi Lite $400 motherboard with a $200 i5 processor is a mismatch. It'll work, but you don't have to spend that kind of money. You can achieve the same results by pairing things of same performance levels, unless you had plans to upgrade this to, a 14900K, which you can. You'd probably want the higher end motherboard to do that as well. But then to buy that chip and that motherboard that can handle it, you're at $1,000 for just those 2 parts. We're going to build a whole system today for likely what do we have? 110 into this, plus 2, let's call it 250, and 110 is 360. We got another, let's call it $100 here, 460. And then you got your power supply, your case, and your RAM. That's pretty much it. Everything else, we've got the cooler, we've got internal graphics. So we're able to do this probably, if you had to buy everything new, I'm going to guess well under $700, maybe even $600, depending on whether or not you have sales tax. So I think when you get, how much you're getting for the money, there are CPUs such as the Ultra 9 and the Ryzen 9 I don't know, like the 7950X3D, it's still like a $600 processor. You could spend the entire $600 just on a CPU. And when you check the performance between the two of them, of course, the $600 CPU is faster. But if you take the $250 CPU and buy two of those, that's only $500. And the two of those together run much faster than a single $600 processor, Intel or AMD. And you'll still have $100 left over. So I don't understand who's buying these really high-end chips and why they're always sold out. That makes no sense to me. I know there are always exceptions, but I don't understand how the exceptions, that there's enough of them to sell the chip out. The only thing I can imagine, at least in the case of the Intel Ultra 9, is they didn't make very many of them. They're holding back their inventory in order to create an illusion that everybody's buying them. If there weren't that many to buy, and they sold out on day one, and I was looking at multiple websites and never saw it available for sale. It's like they were already sold before they were released. I don't think they made that many. And I think it's to create a drive of demand. Like, you want this, you can't have it. Well, no, I really want it. Even though you shouldn't want it to begin with if you're any good with math. But there are some exceptions where that makes sense. Anyway, that's why we're building what we're building, because this is more practical. The other tech enthusiast channels can open their wallets and throw their money around and not even care about any value at all. That's fine if that's what they want to do. This is the newest thing, you know, whatever. Have fun. Don't let me get in your way. Now, for the rest of you, the normal folks, with those of us that aren't wealthy and have this kind of money to throw around, and if we do throw this kind of money around, by the way, we're not going to do it again anytime soon. That computer better last a long time, whereas the tech enthusiasts will do this every other week, you know. Here's another $8,000 computer, and another $8,000 computer. Here's $5,000 computer. Hey, that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a game show. So, all right. So that's the motivation behind today's build. That's why I thought this would make a good Friday video, because what people ask me more than any other question is, what's the best bang for the buck? I want to buy a PC. Do I buy Intel? Do I buy AMD? Do I buy ASRock? Do I buy Gigabyte? Honestly, I don't think you can make a bad decision here, because they all make good products. And where you see value and where I see value may not align. But if you're asking me, what do I think is value? Me. I can't speak for you, right? I can tell you what mouse I like, but I don't know that has anything to do with the fact that you would like the mouse. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe we'll do that one day. We'll talk about what are my favorites. Personally, I find it a bit egotistical to think that somebody feels like, since I like this, you should like it too. I completely disagree with that. I think you should like what you like, and I should like what I like. That's it. It's that simple. So if you guys, and I do get asked this, what router do you use? What mouse do you use? I will answer those questions. What I have problems answering is, what router should you use? What memory should you buy? I don't know. No idea. Nor does anybody else, except somebody who either knows you really well or you yourself. So when a customer calls me and they're running a business, maybe they've got a real estate business or an accounting business, they run it out of their house, or maybe they've got a small office, a small law firm. This is very common. And they say, look, we don't need liquid coolers, and we don't want RGB, and we don't want to spend a ton of money. But we're done dealing with the system integrators like Dell and HP. We're so done with them. Can you build us something better? And I say, not only can I build it better, it'll cost you the same or less. I had one customer call me, and they were under the impression, and I'm not making this up, this may come as a shock to some of you, they thought that if they bought an HP computer, they needed an HP keyboard, an HP printer, an HP monitor. So they bought everything HP because they thought they didn't have a choice. And then they started getting frustrating with the printer not printing and the computer not booting, and They'd call support, they'd sit on hold, they'd talk to somebody with a very thick foreign accent that they found difficult to understand. The guy tells me the last time they called, they had wiped all the data without explaining what they were doing was going to wipe all the data. So they lost everything. The gentleman's wife was in complete tears, just psychologically destroyed. And he saw my videos and he reached out and he said, is there anything you can do to help us? And through our conversation, I learned that he was under the impression that if he bought HP, he had to use HP everything. And you have to understand the way the common user thinks. If you're watching these videos, you're probably not a common user, or you don't want to be one anymore. And that's what my videos are about. They're about sharing just the basic knowledge that we should all have, knowing that we can buy any computer and any keyboard and any mouse and any monitor. And as long as it's all relatively modern, it should all plug in and work well together. Some people don't know that. Well, as you can imagine, they were done with HP. They want nothing to do with HP. And so we replaced one computer's home office with two PCs, husband and wife. We did the husband's computer first because, you know, the husband's the one that found me and was really wanting to solve the problem. And the wife was like, you go first. So we built him a system. He loved it. He goes, you got to build another one of these for my wife. I can't believe we stuck with HP all these years and we didn't have to, you know. And I'm like, yeah, and if you want a bigger monitor, go to Best Buy, pick whatever one you want. Just plug it right in. It's fine. You want a different keyboard? Any one you want, just plug it in. You don't have to ask me for permission. You don't have to ask me if it's compatible. Yes, whatever it is you want, speakers, headphones, printers, you pick whatever you want at the store. It will all work with what I've built you. And if you ever have any problems with it, you're going to call me. You're not going to call some call center in India. You're calling me, the guy who built it. You're going to talk directly to the person who built it. Sold. And so that's where we're at. And now they're happy. I think they've called me to do some maintenance. They called me and said, hey, everything's working good, but you mentioned doing some maintenance. And, you know, it's been a while. And I said, yeah, let me connect remotely. I spend about 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half cleaning it up. And then we're done with that one, do the other one. They're 100% happy. And we're building something similar to what I built for them, although this modern motherboard and chips that we're using, CPU that we're using, weren't available at that time. This is the equivalent to that. It was a best bang for the buck build, and it's been, I think it's been 4 years, and they're still using it today. They're very happy with it, no complaints. And like I said, I don't think we had any support call. I think there was a virus concern, but no support calls in the way of the system's crashing or it's not turning on, none of that stuff. All that went away. Imagine what that must feel like to be released from the restrictions of being locked into an HP infrastructure. And then to find out you never were, that was never required. So they are very happy. So we're just trying to spread the knowledge. All right, let me jump back over to the chat room here right quick and see what we got going on here. Nick Caffrey renews his membership, now a member for 10 months. Right on, thank you, Nick. He says hello, Carey and Mara. And contributes 10 euros in Super Chat and says, hello everyone, always great to see the usual crew appearing. Right on. Absolutely. Charles Vandola with a $5 Super Chat. Thank you, Charles. And Charlie Purdy, a thank you to him as well. There's our friend Rick Lakes joining us from Minnesota. I bet it's getting cold over there. Garfield Rupe saying hello. And Mark Gaines and Mortant 1210 saying hello. Peter VZ and Gaberto Gonzalez, Phil Stodd, Gary Tatum, Michael Lavelle. Welcome in. I'm not going to go through everybody's name today, but you know, let's chat as we go through today's video. Now, what I find this kind of surprised me, and I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a sticker on this box that I have never seen placed on a box before. Let me just bring it up to the camera so you can read it here. Let's go right about here, I think. Apparently, you're not supposed to eat this. And, I mean, look, I know that I encourage anyone to build a computer. It's as easy to do as Legos. But how young are they? How young are the children building PCs that sticker is? I mean, if the child can read, I don't think they'll be eating any of this. And if they are eating any of it, I suppose they must be so small they haven't learned to read yet and they don't know any better. Still, maybe that's a good sign that the PC builders are getting younger and younger. So if you feel like you're still on the fence about whether or not you can do it, that sticker right there should reaffirm you should have no problem. Just don't eat it. I don't know what this world is coming to. Crazy. This doesn't look like the burrito I ordered. All right, opening up the box, or you get the motherboard out first. I don't know why ASRock puts our instructions in an anti-static bag. Anti-electrostatic discharge bag. I guess they don't want you to give an anti-static shock to the manual you're never going to read. And they don't want you to give an anti-static shock to all of the M.2. Sorry, did I say something funny?
This doesn't look like the burrito I ordered.
Well, does it? I think we can objectively agree that is not a burrito.
It might be better.
Everything's better with hot sauce.
Yeah, right?
We could deep fry it too.
There you go. Even better.
I could deep fry my shoe. It doesn't mean I should.
Oh, that was hilarious.
But look at the anti-static bag. Look at all of the little, we got a little M.2 standoff. We've got, usually they give you 2 SATA cables, but I'm finding like the new MSI board we just worked on, they only give you 1 SATA cable. I never noticed because I don't.
The burrito filling?
Well, they give you 6 SATA ports on the board. Usually the number of ports you have is the number of cables you get.
Yeah,
but because
the burrito tastes better.
I don't know. You want to try it? Would you like some SATA on your burrito? But I don't understand why they put it in anti-static bag. That's weird. I'm guessing maybe they got a lot of these just laying around that they didn't use. Strange. Completely unnecessary. Safety first, I guess. It might pick up this manual and get a static shock and the whole thing goes up in flames like a magician's flash paper. This world is getting to be weird. Okay, ASRock packages their boards a little differently in that we've got a little bit of foam right here protecting the board. That's fine. Unnecessary, but okay. We've got our motherboard in an anti-static bag as it should be. This is just a piece of cardboard that sits in the empty box. And the reason I take it out is I need all the room I can get to put all the things we're not using back into the box. All right. Now in this case, I want to make sure to put these screws down into the standoff points for the M.2s. I don't like keeping these in the box because customers lose these. So what I do is I put these into the board even when they're not used. So when the customer goes to add an NVMe drive in the future, I don't get that support call, where's the screw? It's in the motherboard box. What motherboard box? The box I gave you when I delivered the computer that I told you to hold on to. You never did that. Or I don't know where I put it. Oh boy, here we go. Because different motherboards may use different length and width of M.2 screws, it's important you use the screws that come with your motherboard. And if your board came with the screws out of it, if you have to return your motherboard to the manufacturer for warranty, this includes Asus, ASRock, whoever, they won't give these back to you if you left them into the board. That's why they tell you, if you leave RAM and CPU or screws in this board, when you send it back to us for warranty, we're just sending you back another board. That's all you're getting. So if there's anything on that board that you want to keep, you better take it off before you send it to us. Guess how I learned that? I got a board back from Asus and I said, there's no M.2 screws. They said, that's right. The M.2 screws are shipped separately from the board. They came in a box and bags. Well, not all manufacturers do that. I didn't know how you guys did it. All I know is they were in the board when I sent it to you, and now you sent it without them, and I'm a little upset because I was waiting for this returned board under warranty. I finally got it, and I can't use it because I have no way to secure my M.2 drive. And they said, well, we'll make an exception for you this time, and we'll send you a couple. And then I had to wait another week. Then I could finally put my board back together. Well, learn from my mistake and don't do that. You'd be much better off the other way around. You'd be much better off, in my opinion, to have the screws, and then the manufacturer says, hey, you didn't send us the screws. And you're like, that's fine. Or the manufacturer doesn't notice, and you get the screws, and now you have twice as many. It's always good to have extra. So I just closed my browsing window when I set the motherboard on my mouse. That is talent. How many people do you know can do that? Let me bring my chat room back up because I accidentally closed it. There we are. So let me go ahead and get the board out of the bag here. It's been a while since we talked about this, but this whole idea of wearing an anti-static wrist strap is kind of silly. If you handle the parts with respect, the way you're supposed to, you would never be touching any of the components on the board other than anything that's like a heat sink or an edge. You can static shock the heck out of those grounding points. That's what they're there for. So make sure when you're holding the electronic parts, whether it's an M.2 drive, notice how I hold it by edges. You're holding your CPU, hold it by the edges. When you're holding your motherboard, hold it by the edges. If you have to lift it up, use the heat sink if it's installed, or use just the sides and try and keep your hands flat. Don't grab underneath of it and start touching all the components. That's where electrostatic discharge can happen. So as long as you're handling your parts properly and you know what you're doing, you don't need to wear an anti-static discharge. There's no harm in wearing it if you want to. I'm not discouraging you from doing it. I'm only explaining why I don't do it. I don't like to be tethered down. I like to be able to do my job freely, and I know how to handle the parts, and electrostatic discharge has never, ever been an issue. Anytime I've ever heard anybody say that they caused damage or somebody they know caused damage with electrostatic discharge, they cannot prove it. You might as well tell me you saw Bigfoot. It's purely imagination based on a conclusion on a lack of information and education. Electrostatic discharge is more likely to happen when these components are in the factory before they are mounted to a circuit board. You have to understand the way electricity works. Well, it is possible, it is highly unlikely that a static discharge would harm a component on a circuit board because there are already grounding circuits. But when you're in the factory and you're putting the parts into the motherboard or you're handling the raw parts, you absolutely want to be protected because you've got a lot of inventory there and you don't want to damage any of it. The likelihood of any electrostatic discharge causing a problem is most likely going to be with the RAM. This is your most delicate, sensitive component of your whole system. This is likely, if you were to get an electrostatic discharge, this is where you could cause harm. But again, if you hold it by the edges or even by the heat spreaders, you can static shock it all day long. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not going to hurt anything. So you felt a static shock and now the board doesn't work and now you've concluded it's because of the static shock. You're probably wrong. It's pretty rare to ever see a board, a modern motherboard or a modern circuit in consumer electronic devices that can be hurt with electrostatic shocks unless they are constant and massive, in which case over time, you can do it. But it's a ghost. Everybody wants you to be afraid of the invisible ghost that harms your computer, and you could do it and not even know the damage you caused for 6 months. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, in theory, but is it likely? That would be go buy a lottery ticket, in my opinion. But there's absolutely no reason not to wear an anti-static strap if you don't mind wearing it and it gives you peace of mind. Spend the $7. And then, by the way, rub your feet on the carpet and then go touch a doorknob while you're wearing the anti-static strap. Tell me what happens. I still get shocked. Gee, you think? All right. Anyway, let's. We have to cut these zip ties that ASRock puts on the foam around their motherboards because you see the motherboard. Sarcasm incoming. The motherboard is so. The box is so big, they put the motherboard in. This motherboard just bounces all over the inside of it. And if they didn't tie it down to the foam, it would break out of the box and it would run free and there would be wild motherboards running around everywhere. So because of the feral nature of these ASRock boards, because they are so powerful, they have to make sure they are restrained and protected and placed into a container along with instructions because the board is so volatile it might catch everything else on fire. So they put the instructions in the anti-static bag too, along with the screws. These metal screws, this thing is so volatile it could melt these metal screws from just the electronic energy that none of this is true. This is ridiculous. However, no other motherboard manufacturer does this. It's not causing any harm, but it is adding more waste. It's adding to the cost of the board. And given all that, ASRock boards are still usually cheaper than their competitors for an equivalent product. I don't know how that makes sense, but honestly, if ASRock got rid of this, or you know what, I don't see any harm in including the foam pad. There's really nothing to break or crack here, but fine. But the reason that you're using zip ties to lock it down, what? Where's it going to go? Look at the size of the box. And then you consider that piece of cardboard that was in there that folds over it. It's not going anywhere. There's no way for this to come out of the box. But yet they still feel the need to zip tie it down, and not just in one corner, but in all four corners. That's labor. That's not being done by a machine. Somebody's doing this, and they're getting paid to do this all day. I don't get it. ASRock is the only one I know that does this. I'd like to see that end. We've got some plastic covering our I/O shield. Now you can see there is a Wi-Fi version of this board available. It's probably a few dollars more. That's what the two holes in the I/O shield are for. And then we have a Type-C port here, but is that... I don't think that's USB 4, is it? No, that's not. It's just a Type-C port. If you want Thunderbolt, or you want USB 4, or you want 7.1 audio, you're going to pay for that, all right? Most of my customers don't care. Most of my customers, all of my customers, do not have a USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4 device, period. End of story. They just don't. Maybe the person that's watching these videos is more likely going to be unlike your typical consumer. But I try and share with you the inner workings of the business and how it works in the professional world, since you have plenty of info on how it works on the enthusiast world, which is, I do what I want. I answer to no one. I just make stuff up. Who cares? That's all well and good. It's fun. But when it's running a business, some of the fun gets taken out of it. When you play baseball at the park on the weekends with your friends, it's fun. But when your friends decide, hey, let's start a league, and you've got to be here every Saturday in uniform and on time, and we got to win the game, and if you don't show up and you don't feel like it, we need you here, you're letting us all down, this kind of takes the fun out of it. I will say, Salem Tech Experts out there in Salem, Massachusetts, makes some great videos from the inside of a computer repair shop. I mean, it doesn't get more real than that. And he's hilarious. And he goes, you know what? I really liked working on computers until I started doing it for a living. You know, if you love doing something, don't do it full time, because you're going to grow to hate it. And all I heard was, is he saying not to get married? It's fun when you're dating, but oh boy, you get married. Oh man. I don't know. Maybe I misinterpreted what he was saying. All right. So anyway, This is our board, and we've worked with this board before. I'm very confident in selling this board to my customers, knowing I'm going to be held accountable for it. And anytime they have a support issue or a warranty issue, or even if out of warranty, I'd hope they'd call me. I don't mind working on it. In fact, I've never even had to work on one. One has never ever come back. I have never RMA'd an ASRock board, ever. I haven't used that many until lately. And that's because I have found the BIOS in MSI sucks. I don't like their prices. MSI is a bit pricey. Asus, I don't know. Asus and Gigabyte, I think they're pretty good. I mean, those were my choices in the past. But now, times have changed. I have changed. And I think you get better value and just overall more bang for the buck from ASRock, just in general. And that's my personal opinion. We got a message from our friend Mitch Morrison. I'm going to change tracks here for just a second. Mitch is traveling all throughout South America this month, and he sent us a video where he was in, where was his first stop? Have I already forgotten? He's in Peru right now. I think he was in Santiago, Chile, and then he went to Peru, and we saw he checked in with us from Machu Picchu, which is beautiful footage if you haven't seen it. It's jaw-droppingly breathtaking footage. And I thought we'd check in with Mitch and see where is Mitch today and where is he going. So where the heck are you, Mitch?
Well, Uncle Carey and everyone in chat, this is your Uncle Mitch, coming to you from Lima, Peru. It's my last day, and finally the sun is out. It's been overcast the last 4 days, so I'm here watching parasailers take people up for a ride. I thought about it, but decided, nah, so I'll just pan and show you the beautiful location as to where I'm at on this one and only sunny day in Lima, Peru. And tomorrow I'm off to Bogota, Colombia, so more videos to follow. See ya.
Once again, he's got that nice steady hand and the slow pan. A lot of times when people shoot with their cameras, they move really quickly. You're like, whoa, slow down. They move like their eyes, and they don't think about what it's like to be a viewer. Mitch does a great job, doesn't he? So I guess he's in Lima, in Peru, and off to Bogota, Colombia. So we'll look forward to getting more updates from Mitch and live vicariously through his worldly travels. Thank you for the update. And let me just move some of this out of my way here. So we're in November now, okay? And I kind of promised myself I wasn't going to work too much on the studio in October. I had been moving everything in August, which was the worst possible time to even be outdoors in Phoenix. And I said, okay, I got everything moved over. I'm going to make it operational, and I'm going to take a month off from this to just reset. So now that we're in November, that means it's time for me to get to work on the studio and organizing it. Well, October was fun, and I'm glad I didn't even make the attempt, because October was, we had the hottest October, I think, on record. So that's not fun to do this kind of manual labor in the heat. Now that we've got good weather, we can open the windows and be much more pleasant. So I am looking forward to having it done. I'm not looking forward to doing it, but my excuse, hey, I'm not doing this in October. Well, I can't use that excuse anymore, trying to get back to work. So you should start seeing some improvements in the studio space and give myself a little more room here, maybe put some things behind me, maybe some shelves, maybe some other previous builds. I haven't figured it out yet. I'll make it up as I go. I don't have any blueprints. Now, when we prep the board, there's no particular place we need to start. You want to put your CPU in first? Do you want to put your M.2 in first? Do you want to put your RAM in first? Sometimes the RAM can get in the way of a heatsink, so you can do it if you want to in any order you want. For me, I like to get these little tiny parts out of the way before I lose them. So I just want to put all the little screws into all the M.2 slots. Now, I was going to check the manual to see how many M.2 slots we've got, but I can just count with my eyes. I can see we got one here, we got one here, we got one here, so that's 3. This one looks like a regular M.2, but it's specifically intended to add a laptop Wi-Fi adapter. And you would run the antenna wires to the back of the I/O shield and screw down those little brass fittings, and then you'd put the antennas on the other side. You don't have to add Wi-Fi that way. You could use one of the slots you have available here to add a Wi-Fi card internally, or you can just get a little USB Wi-Fi adapter. This is a flash drive, but they look just like flash drives. You don't even have to open the computer up. Lots of different ways to add Wi-Fi. You could also buy the board with the Wi-Fi already put in it. I think they want a few more dollars for it if you need Wi-Fi. Most people on desktops are wired. Most people with portable computers are Wi-Fi. Usually the desktop's not being moved around, but sometimes people place the laptop in a part of the building where they cannot run a wire, or they don't want to run a wire, and they want Wi-Fi. This idea that I want Wi-Fi in case I might need it one day, bad idea. And the reason it's a bad idea is that Wi-Fi changes are always happening, standards. So if we put Wi-Fi in this today, and today's standard is Wi-Fi 5, well, we've already had Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and now Wi-Fi 7 is the standard. So now we need Wi-Fi, and I suppose Wi-Fi 5 is better than nothing, but for probably the same or less money than what you paid for that Wi-Fi 5 years ago when you bought the board, you could have just bought it now when you need it. It would cost you less and you'd get more. Why would you want it to be slower? So this idea of future-proofing with PCs, you're just spending more unnecessarily. The only 2 things that I can think of that don't change in price mostly are computer cases and power supplies. So if you want to buy a more powerful power supply, sure, it won't be as energy efficient. It might cost you a little bit more to run the system, but you won't have to replace it because you've added a graphics card, or your power draw's increased. So you're planning ahead. If you see a case is on sale and you want to build a computer one day, but you don't know when, go ahead and buy that case, because case prices generally only go up, except for sales, right? Maybe there's a great deal on a case this holiday season, but you don't have anything to build yet. Buy it, be sure and take it out of the box and inspect it for any damage right away, because you only have 30 days to return in most cases. If there's any damage, you don't want to find out 6 months from now. Retailer's going to say, you should have told that to us 6 months ago. You're way too late. This is a scam. So you definitely want to inspect what arrives and make sure it's okay. Verify everything looks good. Then put it back in the box, put it away. And years can go by, years, and that case will still be more than likely fitting all the standards as they have been for the last 25 years. I can't imagine that's going to change anytime soon. So just things to keep in mind. Older cases may not have the latest USB tech on the front built-in port. We have older cases that are available today that don't have any USB Type-C on them. You may not need that or want it. Or you might have it on the back of the board, and that might be good enough, right? It's just if you want it up in the front. Everything's available for a price. And when you future-proof, there may be some new tech that comes out, such as USB Type-C. We never know when it's going to happen. And the board you bought was prior to that tech being invented, and so it doesn't provide an option for that. It's not a deal killer. You could still use it. It's just going to be a little more limited in that way. Also, your tastes can change. What you wanted a few years ago, you may not want today. So that's why I think future-proofing when it comes to tech is kind of a silly idea. Let me spend more today for something I don't need, rather than wait till I need it and spend less and actually get more. But it's your money. Now, to to put all these little M.2 screws in, we've got, and again, I don't know why they put one M.2 screw in its own little baggie. Why they can't share, I don't understand. I think ASRock hates the environment. They're like, we're going to fill your landfills in all your local municipalities with unnecessary foam and anti-static bags. And we're going to take every teeny tiny little part that could share one bag, and we're going to give each part its own little bag. Now, by the way, there are places in the country here in the US, which is shocking to us, that you have to pay for your shopping bag when you check out of the market. We first saw this in California. They wanted 10 cents per bag, encouraging you to bring your own bag or reuse the bag. So there's a grocery store called Sprouts. We go to Sprouts, and they're the only one doing this. We go to Sprouts, and they say, do you want it? You want to put your stuff you bought in a bag? Well, I would probably think that's the most efficient way for me to get it to the car. Well, how many bags do you want? Oh, whatever it takes. Okay, well, it's 10 cents a bag. Did you bring your own bag? No. So now I take the spare bags, I put them in the trunk of the car, and then whenever I go to Sprouts, I forget them. So I walk into Sprouts, we go to check out, and it says, how many bags did you bring? And I went, oh, hold on. I got to go walk out to the parking lot and go get the bags out of the trunk. Then you go somewhere like Whole Foods, and Whole Foods is like, here's a paper bag. You go to Trader Joe's. Here are 2 paper bags. We'll reinforce it. No charge. Here you go. You go to the Kroger grocery stores. Have all the bags you can eat, whatever. I understand it's for the benefit of the environment. I get it. I don't like that it's not voluntary. I don't like that it's required. And what good is it that they're doing this when other companies are doing this? I mean, they're going right up against the whole point. If we're not all on the same page, yeah, I know, sounding like an old man, but I just don't get it. Make it voluntary. If you bring your own bag, maybe give a discount instead of the other way around. All right. Let's take a look here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 M.2 screws, and we've got 1, 2, 3 M.2 sockets, right? One for the Wi-Fi. And then underneath this one that says M2 Armor, there may be another one, and that would be the 4th. And because these are so easily lost, and they can differ from one motherboard manufacturer to another, we want to keep these with the board, and I do not want the customer asking me where the screws are, because I don't know which screws to provide. I got to figure out which board they bought, when they bought it, and what screws that board came with at that time. I can't just give them an M.2 screw. Well, I could, and roll the dice and hope that one works. This one's too wide, this one's too narrow, this one's too long, this one's too short. This one is silver and mine was black. I don't know. Just everything you need with your motherboard came with your motherboard. So I do this because I'm thinking of tomorrow. I'm thinking of the endless future possibilities of why a customer might call me, and I nip that in the bud so that call never happens. Now, how do I know they were going to call me? I don't. So how do I know I'm preventing anything? Maybe they wouldn't have called anyway. Well, I can guarantee you they're not going to call on this issue. The other way, I don't have such guarantee. You're just hoping for the best. I don't run my business on hoping for the best. That's why I say maybe the hardest part of my business is convincing people all the problems they're not having because we did things a certain way. And people are very skeptical about that. Well, I don't know if that's true. Well, did you have any problems? No, but maybe I wouldn't have had any problems anyway. Okay. When they have problems, it costs me money. And the more it costs me, the less I make. When I make less, it's harder to stay in business. So I don't want to just hope for the best. I want to try and control that outcome as much as possible. Within reason. I mean, I can't control everything, but believe me, if I could, the world would function a lot smoother. A lot more boring and reliable. So I'm just simply putting the M.2s, and you'll notice more expensive motherboards will have heat sinks over all of the M.2 slots for that nice armor aesthetic look. When you spend less, you'll see we only have one heat shielded M.2, and that's the one that we want to use for our fastest drive and our main drive. These others will be slower drives, and you can add your own heat sinks to them, or maybe don't put a heat sink on it at all. My preference, of course, is to get a board where all of the M.2s come with the motherboard heatsink that all matches aesthetically. Because the minute you put a bare drive in here, you lose the look. The minute you put your own heatsink on, you lose the look. It doesn't match anything. If that doesn't matter to you, that's fine. But it matters to me when I claim to be a professional and I deliver something that looks amateurish. So my preference is to have covers over all these M.2 slots. But when we're talking about a certain budget, beggars can't be choosers, and we go with, okay, I guess we'll deal with that, as it is. So this last M.2, where's this one go? We have an M2 Wi-Fi right here, and I guess this is our little standoff for the M2 Wi-Fi is what it appears to be. Now, why they put the standoffs in everything else, all the other M2s, but they did not do that for the M2 Wi-Fi, I don't get it. It's almost like they just want to make sure we're adding to the landfill, and you're going to lose this part if you don't put it in today. Pretty sure that's why they do it, because any other reason, well, is a mystery to me. So when we put that down, you definitely don't want to over tighten it because you will break the piece off the motherboard. But just a little bit more than finger tight, because if you only tighten it with as far as your fingers will take it, then when you put the screw on, especially if you put the screw on too tight, it'll back the whole thing out of the board. It'll all be one piece. Then you're going to need to get some pliers, and it becomes this whole little dance routine to separate the two. So you don't want to leave it so loose it falls out or unscrews itself when you're putting the screw in or out. So you just put that in right where you get resistance, just stop. Good enough. Now we can take our M.2 heat shield off. This is our main M.2 up here at the top. If this were a Gen 5 motherboard, if it accepted Gen 5 M.2, we would have to worry about the extreme heat Gen 5 can generate. But I'm going to tell you right now, if your motherboard has a Gen 5 M.2 slot, I guarantee you it has a big heatsink over it, and I guarantee you that motherboard heatsink is going to be way better than any NVMe drive that comes with a heatsink. Just so you know, it might make sense to buy an NVMe drive that comes with a heatsink where you don't have one, right? Like down here. But if it's not a really fast M.2 drive, it's probably never going to get that hot, and buying the heatsink is a waste of money. The enthusiasts won't tell you this. You're solving a problem you never would have had. You're spending money you didn't need to spend to do work you don't need to do. And when you buy a Gen 5 NVMe that comes with a heatsink, you spend more for it. And you can't have the motherboard heatsink and the Gen 5 heatsink that came with your Gen 5 NVMe drive. You have to pick one or the other. But only one matches your motherboard, and only one is built better and cools better, and that's the one that came with your motherboard. So why would you pay extra for a heatsink on your NVMe drive when your motherboard has a better heatsink that matches the aesthetic of the board? I don't know why. I see people adding heatsinks to NVMe drives for no apparent reason. Well, I saw a video where they said this mattered. But what problem were you having? Was the drive slowing down? How would I know? Well, you wasted money. Well, they didn't cost that much, but you wasted your time. Well, I got nothing better to do. All right, you be you. I don't know what to say. Anyway, the Samsung 980 Pro is a Gen 4 drive, and you'll see this heatsink is pretty thin. If we compared this to an ASRock that has a Gen 5 M.2 up here, the heatsink's about this thick. That's why you get the appropriate heatsink that the motherboard manufacturers determine is needed for the fastest drive they support. That's it. And when I say the fastest drive they support, I'm not talking about drive manufacturers. I'm talking about drive protocols. If it's NVMe Gen 5, if it's Gen 4, there's a certain heat range that they say, okay, one size fits all on the heatsink, and that's it. And it should be 100%, without exception, far superior than any included heatsink that comes from any manufacturer of NVMe drive. We've got our thermal tape to remove, and it looks like, let's see, empty bag. If I put this in here, where does the screw? Okay, I'm not a big fan of this design, but what ASRock has done is they're having the heatsink hold the drive down. And the reason I don't like that is when the thermal tape on the back of the heatsink gets sticky and it sticks to the NVMe, and you take the heatsink off, the whole NVMe drive comes out. Now, that's probably going to be okay, but surprising. It's better if something else holds the heatsink, the NVMe drive separately, so you can, because the heatsink can be on there really tight, just like trying to take a cooler off of a CPU. And I don't like ripping the NVMe drive out of its socket, even though it's nowhere near as delicate as an AM4 socket, or the bottom of an AM4 CPU. So I'm not a fan of that. I am a fan of the quick locks, the quick release levers that everybody's using now. But because this is an older and less expensive board, it didn't come with that feature. So basically, you have to hold the drive down, I guess. And I have to figure out what the heck I just did in my heatsink. I set it down somewhere just now. Did it vanish on camera on my David Copperfield? Where did it go? Let me take a look quick here in the chat room while I reset my brain, because I just had that heatsink in my hands. I just peeled the tape off of it, and now I don't know where I put it. My workbench is small. I've got no excuse for this other than I'm easily distracted. Let's see. Alexander says, strange that my ThinkPad from 2009 has no NVMe slots. I don't think we started using NVMe until 2015. And I don't think I even used my first solid-state SATA drive until 2013, if I recall right. We just didn't have them. I don't think NVMe became available in consumer products until Gen 3. If I'm not mistaken, Gen 3 was the first that we saw in consumer products. And that was around 2015. So you're going another 7 years before that? I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised if it did have it. And I'm just making these dates up. I'm trying to remember when it came out, but that seems about right. Oh, he said he was joking. Yeah, sometimes jokes are kind of hard to get if you don't add a winky face or an emoji to indicate the tone. Anyway, what the heck did I do with my heat shield? Peel the tape. I've got the tape. I've got the trash. I know where my trash is, but the part I need, I set it down. Did I put it in the drawer for something? What did I do with it? You guys are watching the video. Tell me where I put it, because I'm confused, more so than normal. Am I looking right at it? I must be looking right at it. It must be here. Are you kidding me? It's live video. When I set the board down, the thermal tape, remember I said it was sticky? It's not like really super sticky, but it's like taffy. Whoops, no harm. It didn't hurt anything. Just stupid. Okay, gotta pay more attention. Now, with that embarrassment over, let's move on to the next embarrassment. There's nothing to help us align this. There's nothing for it to sit in. There's no indication as to which way is up or down other than the writing on the top of the heatsink. So, my guess is we're not going to use this screw. I guess we just don't use it. Let me just verify. Yeah, there's no way for us to use that. See how weird that is, that nothing's holding this drive in place. So this makes the install the exact opposite of one of those quick disconnects, which is super easy, versus just giving me a screw, which is also very easy, to this, which is overly complicated because you basically need 3 hands to hold the NVMe drive down while also placing the heatsink in the exact right place where it'll line up with the mounting points. The good news is you should only have to do it once. Nick Caffrey says, well, that was fun. Yeah, it might have been fun for you. Not so much for me on this side of the camera. That's all right. These are things that are all good lessons to keep in mind when you're building. You can learn from my mistakes. As we are live, you see everything. In an edited video, we just edit that out. You'd never even know. So there's a little bit of lying that happens in editing, little deception. And I'm just a big fan. With all the deception going on around us in the world today, I just like real. I'm just a fan of real. I don't know what else to say. Just how I am. Now, they give us 4 SATA ports. I see 2 SATA ports here, 2 SATA ports here, but they're only giving us 2 SATA cables. And as I mentioned, we have that MSI board, that Pro 790p Wi-Fi board. Kind of a pricey board, $200 motherboard. 6 SATA ports on the board. Chintzy. They only give you 1 SATA cable. What surprised me is that this only came up recently when a customer wanted to hook up a couple of SATA devices. I was like, SATA devices? We haven't done that in a while. Yeah, all right, whatever. And then I went and checked, and it's like, we don't have the cables. I mean, I've got a lot of spare cables that I've never used. Don't get me wrong. I was just kind of surprised at $200 they'd leave out the SATA cables. Like, if you're saying we don't need to include them because nobody's using them, then why are you giving me the ports? If you're giving me 6 ports, you should be giving me 6 SATA cables. And if the reason you're not giving them to me is you're saying nobody's using them, then take them off the board. So ASRock's kind of doing the same thing. They're giving us 4 SATA ports and only 2 SATA cables. You're on your own, I guess, for buying cables. That's not how it used to be. If you had a motherboard with 2 ports, you got 2 cables. 4 ports, you got 4 cables. 6 or 8, you got 6 or 8. Just go back and watch my previous unboxing videos from 2013, 2014, 2015, 2008 even. I mean, we've been using SATA for some time. And I never noticed they were chinsing out on the cables because I stopped using them. Nobody wants them anymore. So I didn't think to count them. I just, throw the parts I'm not using back in the box. I wasn't paying any attention. Then along comes a customer that's still holding on to SATA, and you're like, oh, all right. I mean, if that's what they want to do. And then I realize I'm going to have to go through my box of spare cables, and I have a lot of them. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I have tons of them. I just thought it for $200. The board would include the number of cables that matches the number of ports, but I guess not anymore. So that's another thing I want you to be aware of, because if I didn't notice it, you may not have noticed this change in packaging either. Hey, there's Ron Hillier joining us. Welcome in, Ron. Good to see you, my friend. Dan says, should you even get SATA these days? So the reason people have SATA these days is there's something psychologically that happens to a lot of people where when we experience something that we have a shortage, say the Depression here in the United States, toilet paper was really hard to get. And if you live through an era where you weren't sure if you were ever going to get toilet paper again, there's a great likelihood that when you come out of that to the other side, and now toilet paper is abundant again, you stock up so much of it that you guarantee yourself you will never go through that again, even though it's not likely ever going to happen again. Or if it does, it wouldn't last for as long as it did. You will find many Depression-era folks. It's great to have spare toilet paper, don't get me wrong, but you don't necessarily need to dedicate an entire room of your house, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. And that's what happens. There's this extreme. And with mechanical hard drives, they're so expensive back in the day, and they're so fragile, and they would die so often. They were a bit rare because you couldn't afford to just keep buying. They were kind of pricey. So you'll have people that take every bit of old hard drive that's still alive and still use it today because they were raised in a way where those were hard to get. You just couldn't get them as cheaply as you can today. And they're notoriously unreliable. And they're never big enough storage, right? So just, why should I buy more new storage when I have this old storage I can just reuse? And the problem with the logic there is new storage is faster, cheaper, and more reliable, even a modern mechanical drive. So if we take, for example, like right over here, I've got a couple over here just to use as examples. I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to grab, let's see, what do we have here? Okay, this is a good example. When I first got a computer in an IBM compatible computer in 1987, I had a 40 meg hard drive. It was pretty easy to fill that up, even with dial-up BBS access. Back in the day, 40 megs was all I could afford. So if you could get more and more and more, it was great. But these days, they're actually outselling the amount of space consumers need for the most part. And I haven't seen a failed mechanical drive in a long time. Now, maybe because people don't use them as much, but even the drives I put in my network attached storage, well, we haven't seen a failed network attached storage mechanical drive in 4 or 5 years. Maybe longer. This is a 12 terabyte Seagate Iron Wolf drive. Do you know how many 40 megabyte IDE drives I would have to have? And how much power they would consume and how slow they would be? And their likelihood of failure because of their age would be much higher, which is a strange place to want to put your data. Let me just put it on this highly volatile container. Oh, it's been fine for 10 years. Well, you know, Grandpa's been around 100 years, so let's just put him in charge of everything because he'll likely be around another 100 years. It's not typically how it works. So if you were an early adopter of computers and these things were as rare as they were and as expensive and unreliable, if you could get another one, give me another one, right? I'll take it. So here I've got a Western Digital green 1 terabyte. So the green is like an eco drive. It's low power, it's slow. It works fine. You can't even give these away. I had a box of drives that like 350 gigs, 500 gig. I got a bunch of Western Digital Blue 500 gig drives that came out of like Dells and HPs, and they're perfectly fine. And then I put them off to the side, I securely erase them and make sure that they work. And then when I get a stack of about 30 of them, I put them up on Craigslist or Facebook, and I'm like, here's 30 hard drives, have all been tested, they're all wiped. They're anywhere from 300 gigs to 2 terabytes. Just a mix and match and take a picture. I'll stack 3 rows of 10, take a big wide photo. You can zoom into it if you want to see all the makes and models. Give me $300 for the box of 30. That's $10 a drive. Just get them out of here. They're in my way. I don't want to throw them away. I don't want to take them to the recycler. Somebody can use these. And I guarantee you, the person who buys them from me is my age or older. There's no teenagers, there's no 20-somethings showing up going, I want to buy those. You might as well be trying to sell them, I don't know. What are they not interested in? Gee, can I have that tiny bit of slow, unreliable storage and give you money? Not even $10. All right? 30 mechanical drives, all perfectly functional, but too small in capacity to be worth anybody's time. But there's always that one person out there that's like, I'll buy that box of 30 drives for $300. That's a bargain. Because they have that perspective of the past. So who's using SATA ports today? Well, these people, generally that are older, will still be holding on to these drives. If they have extra drives, they can't see not using them, despite the fact that they might slow their whole computer down. And if they have a computer problem on a brand new computer, it's likely the oldest piece that you carried over and you mixed it into your new stuff. The old piece was already old. How much time did you think it had left? It's not because you're mixing it that it's failing. It's because it's already so old. It's not going to last forever. Do you want to? A lot of people with that mentality won't change their tires until they get a flat. Like you tell them that tire needs more tread and they go, no, it's fine. I have people like this in my life. You're not going to take a road trip with tires like that. Oh, it's fine. And then you find out they had a flat on the way and they had to wait 2 hours for a tow truck and the spare they had was also flat. And they're like, yeah, so what? I mean, to me, it wouldn't be a so what. To me, I'd be beating myself up going, man, I should have known better. You knew this was going to happen. Now I'm stuck on the side of the road and I got to wait for a tow truck or, my spare is also flat. How could today go any worse? My whole schedule's thrown off. I was going to buy tires anyway. It's not like I'm saving any money by not buying them. And now, instead of me being proactive to prevent a problem, I'm now being reactive. And the difference between those two is it's going to cost me more to be reactive. It's going to happen at the worst possible time versus me deciding when I want to do it and never deal with this again, right? Just be done with it. Now, I can't tell somebody, hey, man, you shouldn't be putting all those drives in your computer. It's a really bad idea. If you have that much you want to store, get a network attached storage device. Well, why would I pay for that when I already have all these drives? Well, I assumed you thought your data was important, but maybe not. As long as it works, there are some people that will continue to use it when everybody else has moved on. And as a tech, when somebody like that calls me and they say, I want to hold on to my old stuff, but I want you to put it into my new stuff, what am I going to do? Say no? I advise them it's not a good idea. I advise them of alternatives. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't change their mind. They say, I fully understand that's going to cost me more money. Therefore, I don't want to do it. So we end up with a small percentage of people who will still use an old drive like this. But if you try and sell this drive, like if I put this on Craigslist or something, Western Digital 1 terabyte drive, perfect condition, it's slow, low power, and was built the 5th of January, 2009. This drive is 15 years old. Going to be 16 years old in a couple months. Do you want to entrust your data to this? At what price? How much would you pay? Let me ask, how much would you pay me for this drive? Anybody? Serious offers only. What would you pay for this? 16 years old, perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. Works perfect. Securely erased, tested, and verified. And you have the latest and greatest of what technology had to offer 15 years ago. Trevor says $1. Alexander saying $10. Mortant says I'll pass. Sam Kowalski says $5. Now, how much is it going to cost me in gas to go meet you somewhere to make this transaction happen? How much do you think it's going to cost me to ship this to you? And what are the risks we take that it gets damaged in shipping? This is easily $20 to ship this. $20. That means putting it in some packing, putting it into a box, taking it to the post office, waiting in line, getting a tracking number, sending you the tracking number, You get the unit, it's broken, and you claim I sold you a broken drive, and it never worked. I was a liar. I was just doing it to make the money. Once you add, say, $10 for the drive and $20 for the shipping, we're now at $30. Now, for the same $30, you could go on Amazon and buy a refurbished drive that is nowhere near that old and probably twice the capacity. In fact, you could get yourself a nice solid state drive, which is much faster. Even if it's just SATA, it's going to be 4 times faster, likely have the same or smaller capacity, depending on whether or not you're getting something refurbished, likely have a longer lifespan left in it, use less power to run it, and take up less space in your case to hook it up. You'd still need a SATA cable. You'd still need a power cable, and you're still going to have to do all that extra cable management. Now, if you had an external drive dock and you could just slide this into a USB drive dock, and you only were, let's say you had a stack of 30 of these, and you just pop it in there and switch them out, I could kind of get that. It's kind of a pain, but that makes more sense than all the cabling being going on the inside. I have some drives. I'm going to show you the situation I'm in here. I have some drives that were removed out of the little HP mini elites that we were giving away to vets, because I wouldn't even give those away because solid state drives are so inexpensive. Okay? It doesn't even make sense. I mean, it makes sense from HP's perspective to put the cheapest drive they can in there. But they're slow, they're unreliable, and let me just grab a handful of these because they work perfect. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're built years and years and years ago where we thought this was good. Today, this doesn't look so good anymore. So there's a stack. Pick a drive, any drive, all right? Don't show it to me, show it to the audience. Sorry, I became Shim Linden for a minute. You bring one of these up close to the camera so you can see what we're working with here. Okay. Here's one. What's the capacity on this drive and when was it built? How old is it? Somebody in the audience should know how to read the date and the size. This says it was built on the 13th of August in 2012, and it says its capacity is 320 gigs. Me asking if someone wants to buy this is like me asking if I can kick you in the crotch. Would you pay me $10 so I can kick you in the crotch? Because it's kind of the same thing as trying to put this online. How much would you pay for this? Anybody in the chat, how much would you pay for this? It works perfectly. It works as good today as it did on the day it was built, 13th of August, 2012. It still performs exactly to that level. 320 gigs. We thought this was a decent amount of space in 2012 for, you know, a pre-built machine. Here's another one. Let's take this one up. These are all SATA, by the way. If you're asking why people still need SATA cables, this is why. This one is a 320 gig. Came out of a Lenovo. When was it built? Sometimes the dates have to be decoded on these. Other times, it's there and I'm just not seeing it. SATA, 3 gigs per second. You know what that means, right? This is SATA 2. This isn't even SATA 3. SATA 1 was 150. SATA 2, you double it to 300. SATA 3, you double it to 600. This isn't even SATA 3. This drive couldn't even perform at SATA 3, but I can tell you, it's still going to be slower because it's SATA 2. It's slow. It's reliable. It works as fast today as it did when it was built. There's nothing wrong with it. You want to keep going? Or, you know, I've got a few more stacks like this. I have a hard time throwing these away because there might be somebody who can use them for something, but I won't use them. I will not use these. And I understand why people don't throw things away. I get that. Maybe I'll meet somebody who would like to have these, and I'll say, here, take them, get them out of my house. They're happy, I'm happy. If I throw them into the recycle bin, they're probably just going to end up in the landfill these days. At least here in the US, they don't really recycle much anymore. China used to take all recycling, but now they don't anymore. So the US doesn't have the processing facility. They have a couple, but not enough. So a lot of when people here in America are throwing things in the recycle bin, for the most part, probably 90% of it's still going to the landfill with the garbage can stuff. It's not how it used to be, but that's just where we are in 2024. Now, because they work, I think maybe somebody can use this one day, or maybe, here's the other backup plan, maybe I'll get enough of these. Like in the case of hard drives, 30 is the magic number for me, because 30 takes up a lot of space and it's heavy, and I don't want the bottom of a box to collapse, and I don't want to have to use several boxes. So I can put 30 in one box, and you hold it from the bottom, take it out to your car, give me $300. Anything less than that's not worth my time. You get $10 a drive, and you get a variety of drives, fast ones, slow ones, Western Digital, greens and blues and reds, 300, 500 gigs, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, might even be a 4 terabyte in there. Who knows? Won't be many, but there might be one. They're all used. They're all tested. They're all securely erased. Get them out of my house, but give me something for them so I can, you know, keep doing what I'm doing. So they're like pennies. If I have enough pennies, I can trade them in for $1. Until it's worth $1, I'll just keep collecting them. They're perfectly good pennies. So that's why people will often use SATA and why people will still have a lot of drives in their computers. It comes from the earlier days when that still wasn't enough. You know, you would grab whatever you can. But now you can buy one single drive that doubles, triples, quadruples the capacity of all those other drives added together, uses a fraction of the power, generates a fraction of the heat, is new and under warranty, or is newer and less likely to fail because they're built more reliably, takes up less space, and you only have one drive that can fail. If you have 10 drives that can fail, your chance of a failure is 10 times more likely. And you're spending more money to do it, you're generating more noise, and you need the power to provide to do that as well. That's a cable management nightmare. Not to mention you start running into how many I/O lanes that you can have running at the same time. When we were doing like the Z1, what were we doing? Z170 or something? The 170 chipset. If you used the NVMe slot, you couldn't use 2 of the SATA ports, like 5 and 6. You had to do one or the other. So people that want to fill everything, there's a slot, I want to fill it. And they're like, how come my SATA, 2 of my SATA drives don't work? Well, it's set in your motherboard manual. You could use the SATA ports or you could use that NVMe. If you don't use that NVMe, you can use the SATA, but you got to make up your mind. Now, I'm not sure that that even applies anymore on like this motherboard here. I was looking through, no, not on this board, on the other board, I was looking through the documentation to see which SATA ports are disabled when you use which M.2 slot, and it didn't say any. So maybe we're past that now. But because this hasn't been an issue for a long time, I honestly don't know. I'd have to research it. Robert Jones says, Carey, I can give you a super chat to keep those hard drives. To not give them to you. I'll give you a super chat so you don't give them to me. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Listen, when the person comes over and says, I want to buy those 30 hard drives, I don't want to hear from you. Like, if you have a drive that fails tomorrow, if you have a question about the drives, you're on your own, man. I want to treat it as though I threw them into the trash can. That's why the price is so cheap. Just like a garage sale, transaction is over. Have a nice day. Thank you for your business. Goodbye. No warranty, no support. As is, I don't even want to know what you're going to do with them. Please don't even tell me. Because whatever it is, it's a bad idea. But your bad ideas are your responsibility and your consequences. I want nothing to do with that. That's why I'm getting rid of them, and that's why I'm getting rid of them so cheap. But even then, finding somebody willing to buy them is a chore in and of itself. And then you got to think, how much time do I want to spend trying to get rid of this stuff when I can throw it in the trash can and be done with it? So there's this two sides of my personality that fight inner dialogue with what's the right thing to do. It's not always about making money, it's about doing the right thing. But if doing the right thing is costing me money and I can't afford it, I got to take care of me first before I can take care of other people. So likewise, I would hope you're taking care of yourself first before you're looking to help someone else. But that's just the way I see the world anyway. When we were using network attached storage early on, years ago when I first introduced you to the Seagate Black Armor, the primary reason for that was for capacity. Because the biggest drive, the biggest hard drive you could buy back then was like 2 terabytes. And we can put 4 2-terabyte drives together, and they were really unreliable. And you'd get a total of 6 terabytes with a 2-terabyte overlay, sort of parity for if any drive fails. And they did fail a lot. And that was the biggest drive you could buy. And then they came out with the 3-terabyte drives. And I got a Seagate Black Armor, and I put 4 of these 3-terabyte drives in it to upgrade my 2-terabyte drives. And now I had 9 terabytes of storage with a 3-terabyte parity drive. All of them failed, not at the same time. And ultimately, 2 of them did die at the same time. And it turns out Seagate had a big recall on these drives, or they had a known issue about these drives failing. And I said, you know what? I can hear the drives spinning. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's the Seagate Black Armor corrupted them. And I took the drives out and I stacked them up and put them on a shelf. Don't touch them. Don't change them. If you ever want to recover data from them, stop messing with it. Shut it off immediately and move on with life. So I said, that's it. I'm done with Seagate Black Armor. That's when I got introduced to Synology and Thecus and QNAP. And I picked Synology, and my whole life changed. I said, wow, this is so much better. It's not a text-based interface. Now we have a graphical user interface. The drives I put in at that time, I don't remember what size they were. I think they were 12 terabytes each. So we go from 12, 24. And then I said, wait a minute, stop. I don't need 4 drives anymore. 24 is twice what I had. So I thought, well, if I can get 12 terabytes and just do a RAID 1, so we get 2 12-terabyte drives, and one always copies what the other one does. If either one fails, there's 0 data loss and the machine stays up. No more parity, no more RAID, as far as like, it's still RAID, it's just called RAID 1, but it's not spread over, it's not striped, it's mirrored. So it's not a backup. If either drive fails, which is what was happening all the time, you just take the drive out that's failed, pop in the new one, and it mirrors it back over, and you're right back. And then if the other drive fails, doesn't matter. Same result, same capacity, but instead of having 4 drives that can fail for 12 terabytes, I now have only 2 drives, cutting my failure rate possibilities in half. Reducing the amount of power and heat, making the NAS smaller. So 12 terabytes starts getting a little tight after about 4 years. It's like, you got 2 terabytes left now. All right, you know what? 16s are relatively affordable. So you just put a 16 terabyte drive in and tell the Synology unit to rebuild it. And it does. And then you just take out, when it's done, it takes about a day. You could still use the unit as normal. You would never even know anything was going on. You take out the other one and put a 16 in, and you say, repair that one now. And now suddenly, instead of 2 terabytes free, I have 6 terabytes free. Oh. Well, now you can buy a 24 terabyte drive. If I put 2 24 terabyte drives in, it's going to cost me $1,000, but I'm also doubling my capacity. I don't have to replace the NAS. And again, I don't even have to copy all the data over. I just take out one drive as though it failed, put the 24 terabyte drive in, and using Synology's hybrid RAID configuration, it resizes when both drives are the same size. It resizes and gives me all the extra space without me having to copy terabytes of data off and back onto the NAS using a relatively slow gigabit network port, which will take forever. Plus, I need a spare drive to copy it over to as a temporary donor until I get the drives replaced to copy it back. And with the Synology's hybrid RAID, you don't have to do that. You just change one drive out at a time, let it rebuild, and do the next one. And it doesn't matter how many drives are in your NAS. You could have 8 drives, one at a time. Yeah, and you're going to give it a day for each drive. It's going to take you 8 days to complete it, but that beats having to get some massive external storage that you've got to copy over your network. Then pull all your drives up, put all your new drives in all at the same time, reconfigure the array, and then copy all that data back. That's probably still going to take you 8 days. Just one is you walk away from it, and one is you rebuild it. But to have 8 drives today, what is 8 times 24? 8 times 2 is 16, and 8 times 4 is 32. So that's going to be like 100 and... what did I just say? 24 terabytes times 8. You're going to be close to 200 terabytes. It's close to? Yeah, because 10 of those would be 240 terabytes of data. If you had 8 of them. If you had 10 24 terabyte drives, you'd have 240 terabytes of data. Subtract 2 from that, which is 48. That leaves you with 192 terabytes. In a business, it kind of makes sense. But for a home user, I think you're hoarding. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you're a digital photographer and you save every picture you ever took. Those people that do that, they take up a lot of hard drive space because they never want to delete anything. You know, I'll never be able to take that photo again. So when they go out, they'll take 3,000 photos with a modern camera. Maybe not. Maybe they'll take 300 photos and they want to shoot in RAW mode, so they have the biggest detail for the most editing potential. And then they're going to put that in a folder and put it on the NAS. And then they're going to do that again and again and again and again and again. And the library only gets bigger. It never gets smaller. But I haven't seen a failed mechanical drive in years. And partly it's because people aren't using them anymore. And partly it's because the drive reliability has gone up so much now. So things are getting better, faster, larger storage capacity, cheaper prices, better build quality, more reliability, using less power, not generating as much heat, not costing as much money to run. That's why holding on to the old stuff is actually costing you more than replacing it. But sometimes the mentality is, I have the old stuff, I don't have the new stuff. Getting the new stuff will cost me money now. Paying for this slowly over time and energy consumption and troubleshooting, that's an easier pill for me to swallow. As long as they understand that going in, it's not wrong, it's just not good for business to advise your customers to do that. I would advise a customer not to do that, and for these reasons. And if they want to continue, at least they're going to not come back when it happens and say they didn't know. That's the tragedy, is if they didn't know. But if I told you what the dangers were and you decide to do it anyway, then you won't be surprised with the frequency with which you're getting frustrated with the reliability or speed of your brand new system being slowed down by insisting on using the old stuff. And that's generally the logic. And hence, we still have SATA ports. Now, there are some businesses that have legitimate restrictions on the SATA ports as well, where they have to. But consumers, it's just a free choice. And in general, you are not going to find younger adults wanting anything SATA based on their computer. That's it. This is mostly PTSD from a history of computers, with some exceptions. There are always exceptions, of course. Looks like I missed a few super chats in here, so a quick scroll through the chat. Peter with a €1 super chat. Thank you, Peter, joining us from the Netherlands. Shamim Kajviras joining us from Sweden. Says hello. Robert Jones with a $10 super chat says, here you go. Thank you, Robert. Charlie Purdy with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie. What's happening?
Emails.
Oh, I should check emails, huh? Thank you for the reminder. Peter with a €1 super chat. Before we check emails, you know, after I spent my 30 seconds of actual work, let me put another 30 seconds of actual work in this and put the CPU in. And we should have this 10-minute job done in about 2.5 hours. All right, there's our stock CPU. Comes with thermal compound pre-applied, which has apparently gotten all over the bottom of the box, but it's fine. It's not perfect, but it's also not so much has been removed that it's going to be an issue. This is our 13500 Intel CPU. These are about $243 with the heatsink and fan included, and built-in graphics card here. So really good deal, and it's no slouch. A lot of cores, high frequency, lower power, lower heat, lower noise, lower price. Same warranty. Drop this bad boy in there. We'll line that up with the edge and just kind of bring it down as far as we can bring it and let it go gently. And then we're just going to grab the top edge and just wiggle up, down, left, and right and make sure that it's sitting in the frame. Don't push down on it, because then you're going to hit those delicate pins and bend them. That's what this is for. This is your internal locking mechanism, your ILM, I guess they call it. And what this does is it's going to push that CPU down and make connection with those 1200 pin, what is it, 1700 pins underneath of it. So we're going to push this lever, which is now going to be very stiff, as we're going to force down a prescribed amount of pressure that is engineeringly specified, that the motherboard manufacturer, when doing this, must meet this amount of pressure within a certain range. Whenever you see somebody like put a piece of glass over a thermal compound and say, this is how thermal compound spreads, that's not how it works. Piece of glass is very porous material, and when they push down with their hands, they're not applying the proper amount of force that both the CPU needs into its socket, and there is a proper amount of force. The heatsink is prescribed by the manufacturer, and if you make a heatsink, you need to follow and measure how much pressure you're putting down on the CPU. Too much may cause the CPU to bend, and too little may prevent proper heat transfer. This isn't that simple. Yes, when we're testing, we can just rest the CPU heatsink on top of the CPU. But when you're overclocking and you want it to be reliable and you're counting on it, you want it to work more than a few minutes, you better make sure that the amount of pressure that is applied is correct, that the amount of thermal compound is not too much or too little. So it doesn't have to be necessarily precise, but it must fall within a range. So when we go to put this on, it doesn't matter what direction I put it on, but to keep the cable management as clean as possible, I want that cable coming out closest to where it's going to plug in. That's going to make it look much cleaner and be easier to work on. I also don't want any opportunity for the cable, whether the system gets shipped or moved, to fall into the fan and prevent the fan from turning. So I'm going to orient this, even though I can orient it any of 4 ways, with that cable coming out of what appears to be the top right corner. And then when I set this down into the socket, there's no screws to turn, there's no backplate to install. It's so much easier. There's no additional expense than like if you buy a liquid cooler. It would be a waste of money for performance reasons. It would be just for looks, and you're going to have the hoses coming down. You need to power the pump, and then if you have RGB, you're going to have to power the hook up the RGB, and then if you have a radiator with fans, those have to be installed, and you have to install the radiator, and then you have to power each fan, and then you have to give each fan RGB, It's a lot more work, it's a lot more money, and it's completely and totally unnecessary on this level of board and CPU. But that assumes you're doing something because it's necessary. So when we push down these stock CPU towers, we go opposite corners, and they lock in at the exact amount of downward pressure onto the top of that CPU, which is sitting into that socket with a specific amount of pressure, which is specified by the engineers. This little tag really bugs me, so I tear that off. Just tells you, don't throw it in the trash can. This is recyclable material. A lot of copper in here. So one of these headers is labeled CPU fan. It's written right on the circuit board in small letters, either above it or beside it, or you can check your motherboard manual. But you definitely want to make sure this fan is plugged into the CPU fan header. Now, when we install our memory on this motherboard, this side of these locking retention levers, these don't open. And the reason they don't open is the concern is that if you have a big graphics card in here, they wouldn't be able to open. The graphics card would be in the way. That's why they do that, in case you're wondering. So for this board, we're going to use all 4 slots, which I don't normally do, but I got this old hardware laying around. This isn't that old. This is just from 2021. Once you get about 7 years old on your stuff, if it's, certainly by 10 years old, you shouldn't be using it. Oh, I've had this printer for 15 years. Carey, I don't know what you're talking about. Hey man, you go ahead and punish yourself, okay? You don't realize how much better printers are today, and you're justifying it because, well, mine works fine. Well, compared to what? So, in that case, don't let me stop you. So we're gonna go ahead and put this, each one of these represents 8 gigs. This is DDR4 3200 speed, and it's gonna go in this direction. Now, 2 of these sockets equals 1 channel. But the sockets are not in 1 channel side by side. They're separated by the other channel. So what we've done is we've got channel 1 and we've got channel 2. So when you put your memory in, the memory's been tested. When it's sold in pairs, it's been tested to work in pairs. And since a channel and another channel each are 2 separate pairs, we want to keep the pairs together the way they were shipped to us on the same channel. So with channel 1 on the board, we're going to use the second socket away from the CPU. That's pretty much universal. And then to complete this channel, the other half of this channel is at the very end, so that there is a socket between them. Now the 2 remaining sockets are the other channel. And even though these look and follow the same specs, they have not been all tested to work together unless they were sold in a kit of 4. They may have an issue even though they're made by the same company, they're the same make, the same model, and bought at the same era at time. If you want to use 4 memory modules and you want it to work, especially if you're planning to overclock the RAM, well, first of all, you shouldn't try and overclock quad channel. That's very or dual channel. It's very difficult. And DDR5, don't even waste your time. But you can do it with DDR4. But don't assume that just because they're made by the same company and the same model, that they will all communicate without a problem if you turn on something like XMP. Otherwise, we'll probably be okay. I have turned XMP on for my customers, my business clients, without telling them. And then I've asked them after a week or 2, have you noticed any difference with your computer? They're like, well, what do you mean? Like noise? I'm like, no, does it seem any faster or any slower? And I'm like chuckling to myself. They're going to say, yeah, it seems faster. I don't know why. About 2 weeks ago, things seemed faster. Because that's when I silently turned on XMP. And I swear to you, the customer says, now that you mention it, it does seem a bit slower than it used to. It's like, okay. That was a waste of my time. Go back to the office and turn that back off. no sense risking a blue screen when the customer doesn't notice anything, or they notice it's worse than it was before. Okay, well, that's the proof in the pudding. You all know we got to keep this, right? We don't have to go through all that. If you have to send the motherboard back, you definitely want to take that CPU out of there and cover those pins up. Now I need a power switch and a power supply. We'll start the BIOS update and then we'll check email. This is about 10 minutes of work, but you know, our dialogue and our conversation together, answering your questions and hanging out, is really what the channel is here for. It's not really to go over the same builds we've done over and over and over again. If you're new here, be sure and check out our older videos where we go into that level of detail. These videos are more community building videos that you're just hanging out with me at the shop. That's all. Some people have this idea of what I'm supposed to be doing, and they've never been here before. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You must be new here. What other content creator spends so much time just talking to their audience? There's a few out there. Not many. Let me go ahead and put the power supply on this and we'll fire it up. The motherboard and CPU have never been used before, so I'm assuming they're in good shape and they work. We don't normally get DOA parts, dead on arrival parts anymore. Quality control's gone up, prices have gone down, performance goes up. Energy consumption typically goes down unless we're talking about really high-end expensive stuff. Then they go to hell with the ecology. Give me more power. Give me my 800 horsepower car that gets 12 miles to the gallon. I don't care. Charge me a lot of money on insurance and charge me a lot of money to buy the car because they have more money than me, I guess. Because they can. No, I have to have a 700 horsepower car. I must have it. I live on a very steep hill. Let's see, we need HDMI. I know I knocked my flash drive off, didn't I? HDMI. You can beat the heck out of a flash drive, as long as I don't knock the hard drives down. Those don't have much value, but they remain as fragile today as they were when they were built. So we try to avoid jarring them or dropping them because that'll almost assuredly guarantee they break. Keyboard and mouse we got right here. Plug in any USB port here. I'll do these USB 2.0 ports over there. And let's see, we got our power switch. We don't want any Ethernet on there yet, no network cable. Let me move this over here. Let me move this in front of me. Turn the mouse on. And I guess I should go get that flash drive because the first thing we're going to want to do, assuming this boots, is update that BIOS. There it is. Pardon me for a minute as I I definitely have to get a bigger bench. All right, power supply is on. Power switch I just hooked up right here. Let's hit the switch. Did I hook up the switch or did I hook up the LED? I hooked up the switch to the LED. It's not going to work. How about now? Now it's working. No harm, no foul. Let's go over to our input there and see what it's doing. Now, we're going to see no signal on the screen here while it trains the brand new CPU and the RAM. The RAM is new to it. It has to train it. And so it's automatically setting the fastest settings that communicate, reading the JDEC information from the RAM, adjusting the BIOS for the right CPU settings based on the CPU we put in. And it takes a moment for the BIOS to do all this. Now, after a few minutes, if nothing happens, then we've got a problem. But until then, don't jump the gun. Be patient and allow the machine to train. This is a normal first-time boot, and it can take up to, about 3 minutes at most. As you can see, we've already moved past that. Now, this Samsung 980 drive, I'm guessing still has some data on it because we're booting into something. Normally, I erase these drives so I don't... This shouldn't be happening. If this was a brand new build, we shouldn't be booting into Windows, but this drive came out of something. So at this point now, I don't need to boot to it. It's probably just a clean install of Windows I took out of something. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the power button down for a second and shut this back off. I'm now going to take the flash drive, which all I have on here is the updated BIOS. I have to assume that the BIOS is so new. This BIOS is so new, there's no way this motherboard has the latest BIOS, but it's possible. But either way, it's simple to find out by simply plugging the flash drive in. This has our BIOS already downloaded and extracted. That's all that's on that flash drive. We'll turn this back on. We're going to boot it back up, only this time we're going to go to the BIOS. Well, since it's not going to the BIOS automatically, I'll start pressing delete on the keyboard here, and hopefully that will take me into the BIOS. Just press delete over and over and over again. And there we are. And we can see our BIOS version is, let me go full screen over here for me. There is our motherboard B760 Pro RSD4. And it says 8.04 right here. We look and see we've got the 13500 CPU. And it does detect our 4 sticks of 8, which is a total of 32. I'm not sure I want to be turning XMP on this. It might work, but I don't know that it's worth it. And I certainly wouldn't want to do that until I know everything functions properly. Now, the date and time were set probably in Taiwan, which is about 14 hours ahead of us. That's not the wrong date and time. It's the right date and time for where the motherboard was built. But we don't have to correct that. Being off by a few days or a few weeks will self-correct, and I recommend you just let it self-correct. When it comes to our BIOS version, one of the other ways we know our BIOS version is if we go to the instant flash option, and it warns us about BitLocker, yeah. It says it's finding version 11.01 on the flash drive. I didn't have to point it to the flash drive. It looked on its own and found it. So hit the update button and it says, are you sure? You say yes. Now, normally a summary comes up of what you have to what you're going to, depending on the maker of the board. I thought this board was going to tell us you're going from, say, this says 8.04 to 11.01. Don't be confused that it says InstaFlash version 2228. That's the version of the Instant Flash software in the BIOS, not the version of the BIOS. Okay. Now, it's important you leave this alone while we're waiting for the BIOS update. If you interrupt this process, you will likely need to send your motherboard in for a warranty replacement. It may not be recoverable. It's not a big deal if you just be patient and let it complete its job. But if you're impatient, you will likely create your own problems. So we just leave this alone and let it do its thing. And while we are, I will check my emails. Roy Shaver with a $5 super PayPal contribution. Is Roy in the chat? Thank you, Roy. And Charlie Purdy with an Amazon gift card. Did Mara ever get her steak sauce? You know what? She didn't. Thank you for the Amazon gift card. Oh, Amazon did deliver the steak sauce, but Mara's already eaten it.
Yes, I did.
What? I said you got the steak sauce, but not the replacement for what you've already eaten. That steak sauce she likes doesn't last long in this house. That'll get you about 10 more bottles of it. That should last you about 3 weeks. A very generous Amazon gift card, of course, from our friend Buster. He says, I hope you enjoy the Amazon gift card. Hello, I want to thank you for making me blue. You should have always been blue, Peter. He says, this is a photograph of me just feeling a bit peckish. Oh, he's snacking on something there. And reading a book. I love these photos that Buster shares with us. Let me see if I can show you guys here. It says we need to reboot here anyway. So we'll let that reboot. And that's likely going to try and boot into Windows right now. Let me just verify that that this tries to boot into Windows, because the next thing I want to kick off is I want to wipe the drive and install Windows 11 24H2. I can probably guarantee the flash drive, the NVMe drive we put in there probably does not have 24H2 on it. It's something that I should have reset and I didn't, and it's probably just a generic install that came out of a mini PC or something. So let me grab my Windows 11 installer. Now, the BIOS update is still taking place. That's why it says no signal. Again, patience is absolutely critical, that you leave the thing alone and let it do what you've told it to do, and don't get in its way, or you're just punishing yourself. So now that we have the post screen back up, let me go back into the BIOS, or make an attempt, and we'll see up here it says we're on version 11.01. So clearly we have the right BIOS version. With regards to the Intel voltage issues, we have a standard cooler. That's where the voltages are being decided. Okay, so we just want just normal standard operating settings. Oh, this isn't what I thought it was. This is just a fan setting. Never mind what I just said. I thought this was asking us what heatsink we have, if we had a stock cooler, a tower cooler, or a liquid cooler. That's not what this is. This is about fan noise. Do you want the fan to be louder? Do you want the fan to be full speed? Do you want the fan to be quieter, but then potentially deal with idle temperatures a little warmer? Not too warm, just a little warmer. Or do you just want the standard, which is the balanced? Of course I want balanced. We have to go up here to advanced if you want to see those PL1 and PL2 modes. That is probably located, let's see, is it under advanced CPU configuration? There's the number of cores, hyper-threading, C-states, thermal throttling. I know it's in here somewhere. Intel's gotten rid of hyper-threading on all the new processors going forward. 15th gen and later, they don't use hyper-threading anymore. Based frequency boost. Maybe it's one of these. CPU config. It's in here somewhere. The bottom line is that when we Intel dynamic tuning technology, when you update the BIOS, it addresses this issue, which should have never been there to begin with. So we don't really need to go in here and adjust. Here's our LP1. This is our long duration power limit. That's your idle power. That's 65 watts. And then you have your turbo or long duration. That's your LP2, your long, sorry, other way around. Your long duration, that's your idle. Your short duration, which is like a turbo on a car. You're not meant to just have the turbo running at all times. It's really, you know, when the car's idling, your turbo should not be engaged on the car. So your car will either idle by default. That would be what we refer to as the long duration. Our short duration means momentarily it will go up to 219 watts. So it won't go any lower than 65 and it won't go any lower than 219. That looks a lot more attractive to me than 4,096. It's a little bit of a number discrepancy there. Not that it would ever hit that to begin with. But with that being said, let me go ahead and take the flash drive that had our BIOS update. Let's remove that now. And let's put my Windows 11 installation media in there. And we'll give that a second to initialize. And we're going to come over here to where it says boot. And let's see, it may not be offered without a reboot here, but we want to boot from, oh, it's under exit. We want the boot override, and we want to boot from, yeah, this is the wrong disk. I want to try and select that, but that's the flash drive. So in order for this to refresh, we're just going to have to save an exit. We can load the UEFI defaults, which is always a safe thing to do. Then save changes and exit. And then it's still going to try and boot to that previous Windows install, which is no good to us. So once again, I'm going to go back into the BIOS. We're going to hit delete over and over again, and we're going to go back over to the exit section, which is where ASRock has, for some reason, put the boot override instead of in the boot section. I don't know. Engineers, what are you going to do? The polychrome is the built-in RGB on the board. We can turn that off in the BIOS so we don't have to install any software if you want it off. It's not a lot of RGB. It's kind of pleasant. It's a little accent. We'll go to advanced mode, and we're going to go over here to exit, and this time we should see the SanDisk Extreme Partition 1. That's what I want it to focus on booting on, and that should bring up our Windows 11 setup screen. And this is the same as when we install Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11. Nothing has changed. The screen may look a little different, but the process and the answers to the questions are all the same as they've always been. I want to install Windows 11. Remember before it used to ask if you wanted to do an upgrade or a custom? Well, they've rephrased that now to be install or repair. All right, whatever. They just rephrased it. We're going to say I don't have a product key, the same as we always have before. So if we don't have a product key, how does it know what version of Windows our product key is for? Well, I already know I'm going to be buying a Windows 10 Pro product key from our friends at SCD Key Deals because it's cheaper than a Windows 11 Pro key, but works as a Windows 11 Pro key. And you don't have to install Windows 10. You don't even need Windows 10. You punch the Windows 10 Pro product key in as though it were Windows 10, and it activates Windows 11 Pro, and it's a few dollars cheaper. Next, accept the license agreement. Now it should look for storage options where we can place our Windows. This is why it's important we only have one drive installed, so that way we don't make a mistake and install Windows on the wrong drive. You'll say, but Carey, I see two drives. Well, in Windows 11, I don't know why, they're showing us the USB drive here, the Windows installation. We cannot install it. Won't let us install on disk 1 because disk 1 here is demonstrated as our USB drive. The three partitions, well, there's two partitions and unallocated space, all added up together are basically 16 gigs in capacity, which is the size of the flash drive. Disk 0 is the drive we want to focus on, and we want to delete all the existing partitions, erasing it and resetting it back to the way it was when it came new out of the box. So one by one, we will go through each partition and select delete. You used to get a warning about this. Hey, you're going to lose all your stuff. Nobody would lose stuff if they had a backup, but there's nothing on there we want. So we're going to go through each partition on disk 0. It does take a moment after we select it before it responds. It used to be instantaneous on previous versions of Windows, but I don't know what the delay is. But now we're left with just 0 partitions. It's all unallocated space, meaning that could be Mac, Linux, nothing, we don't know. It's unallocated, empty. It's like a piece of land that nobody's built anything on. And we're going to build Windows on it. It totals 931.5 gigs, that's a terabyte. Next. And we're off to the races, and it's now going to partition whatever number of partitions it needs, format those partitions, and copy the Windows installer files. At that point, it'll reboot and start installing Windows from the Windows installer files it copied over, and we no longer need the flash drive. And, oh, I have to hit install. All right. Let me go back to the email, and while we're installing here, let's jump over to camera 1 momentarily, so I can share a picture of Buster with you guys. So here's Buster snacking at work. He got his orange safety vest on. There he is. Thank you, Buster. Good to see you. For those of you looking for a face to put to the name. And a super generous contribution. We appreciate that. G.I. Pollock with a $10 PayPal contribution. Thank you for that, G.I. And Robert Barnes with a $100 PayPal contribution. That's very generous. He says, here's a small token to keep the best channel on YouTube rocking. Right on. Well, thank you so much, Robert. We have, I'm excited to say, because of the recent generosity of the community, we have added a Ryzen 9 9900X and motherboard and matching RAM to our upcoming builds. So we now have, coming up, just so you know, because of your generosity, nothing is being provided to us by any sponsors. We have an Ultra 7 Intel build. We have another Ultra 7 265K Intel build using two different ASRock motherboards that we've purchased. We've got a Ryzen 9 9900X, which is so similar to the Ultra 7 265K in price, performance. They're nearly, the line is blurred between these two, and I went ahead and got an ASRock motherboard for that as well. So the cost of all of these components, not including RAM, on the Ryzen side, we have to order RAM, but on the Intel side, we have the RAM. And the reason why is color. I went with a white motherboard for the Ryzen, but I don't have any white RGB RAM. That's DDR5. That's why I had to buy. I already have black OLOY DDR5 that's RGB in inventory. So on the Ultra 7s, that's what we'll use. We're not using any CU DIMMs. We're not overclocking. We're not trying to get 7% more increase and spend $300 to do it. It's just customers don't order that stuff. Those three builds are channel builds that wouldn't happen without your support. Again, no sponsorship involved. I think ASRock should be helping us out here because we really like their stuff. And I'll put Mara to work to get her to talk to the folks at ASRock and see if maybe they'd send us some product. I mean, we're buying it anyway. It's our choice. We choose any motherboard that's available. Only I'm thinking about how I support it, if my customer's going to be happy with it, not just today, but in years ahead, and how much it's going to cost. How easy is it to work with? And right now, to me, there's one manufacturer that stands out to meet all of those requirements today that did not stand out necessarily in the past, but they do now, and that's ASRock. And that's my personal opinion for my reasons that I've just explained. So if we could work with them, that would be ideal. Let me see how our install is doing, and thank you guys all so much for your generosity. Is it Friday? People are in a good mood on Friday. All right, let's go back to camera 2 here. Oh, it's just now finishing the install. The system is whisper quiet, by the way. This whole idea that stock cooling fans are junk, and as you can see, it's rebooting right now. That's just not true anymore. That used to be true. It's not true anymore. Let me just see in the chat room. Dan wants to know why ASRock. Oh, I think I just answered that. Morton said he's got the ASRock Z790 Nova. We should be getting the Z890 Nova next week, and that'll be what one of our Ultra 7s are going to be built in. And the other is, they believe it or not, they made a live mixer board, but not on the AMD side. They still have the original orange live mixer B550, B560, and then we have the purple live mixer board on the Intel Z790. And now they have a Z890 live mixer. It's nowhere near looking anywhere as extreme, but it's got a ton of USB ports on it. So that'll be what one of our builds are in, and the other build in the Nova. And on the AMD side, I considered the Tai Chi Lite, but at $400 on a 9900X didn't make much sense. And to be clear, these parts were ordered on the AMD side hours ago. That's how recent. So it'll be a few days before we get the parts in. And of course, once we get the parts in, we'll schedule the show. And you guys know you've made that possible. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the content. So we can't thank you enough for that. And we take every penny that we get and we use it to power the show. So the more we have to work with, the more we can do on the show. And the less we have to work with, the more creative we have to get for show content. You know, come up with a reason. It's cheaper to just take something we've already got and maybe do a deeper dive into it. But if we want to keep showing off new stuff and they're not sending it to us for free, forcing us to read a script, if we want to do it our way, we got to buy it. And once it's ours, we can do whatever we want with it. Manufacturer has no say. That finishes our Windows 11 install right now as it wraps everything up. It's a very quick install on a modern PC. Again, it's quiet. It's very energy efficient. Yes, you can spend money for RGB if you want to. You can spend money on a liquid cooler if you want to. You could spend money for faster RAM if you want to. I don't know why you'd want to, but you can if you want to. Most of my customers, I'd say all of my customers always want to spend the least amount possible and get the most amount for their money. The minute we start adding things we don't need, we're spending more money we don't need to spend. I had one customer, I still have him by the way, and he said, Carey, I'm a little concerned about the price. I said, well, I don't really think it would make sense to go any cheaper than this. No, I don't think you're understanding me. Is this the best you can sell us? Is it the best I can sell you? He goes, yeah, we don't have any money problems here. There's no reason for you to hold back. Seems like these are a little light. I said, okay, if you want me to build you a machine that costs twice as much, I'd be happy to do it, but it won't benefit your employees. It will not benefit your productivity. It's only going to cost you more. Because of your network and the way your employees work, the type of work that they do, spending twice as much on the machine is completely unnecessary. What I'm offering you is what I believe will last you the next 8 years, or at least we should consider replacing it in about 5 years just because you're a business. Should be trouble-free, very affordable, very reliable. And no, it's not holding any of your employees back. If anything, the rest of what your employees do are limiting how fast this tech can go. You're not even going to use this. He goes, okay, I just want to make sure because, you know, we have the money. I said, if you want to spend it, I'll build it. But I'm telling you, if I was you, I wouldn't. This is exactly what your office needs right here. It's right down the middle. It's not too much and it's not too little, and it'll last a good long time. Okay, I was just making sure. If that's what you say, I believe you, and green light, consider the order placed. And that was years ago, and they're still using those machines today. That doesn't happen very often. It's delightful, though. I think this is too cheap. You know how frequently a customer says, I don't think you're charging enough? Almost never. That's always amusing to think about that. Let me go back over to camera 2 here right quick. We should be at the desktop now. And if you notice, when we're at the desktop, we probably aren't going to have all the drivers, right? Because it's relatively new hardware, but we might get it through Windows Update if our network card driver has installed. So let's go to the device manager and just take a look. I know there's going to be stuff in here. I don't know what the stuff is. Windows Update might take care of it automatically if we have network access. Now at the bottom right corner, I see the globe, but that's also because I've not plugged my Ethernet cable in, right? So every time I say so, you take a shot. So. What we're going to do is take our Windows 11 installation media out. We don't need that anymore. This was our BIOS. We don't need that anymore. This will be erased and be ready for another BIOS for another day. I need my Ethernet cable, and that's how we're going to tell if, I mean, I can look in the device manager, but I mean, I'd rather just plug it in and see. To me, that's just an easier, more definitive test. So we're going to plug that in, and we're going to see down in the bottom right corner of our desktop if that little globe becomes a little screen down here. Yeah, it looks like it's doing something. Remember, this is Windows 11 24H2. There's still updates to it. So now that we've got the little screen down here, we've been assigned an IP address. We are on the internet. We'll go to Settings, and we're going to go to Windows Update. It's the very first thing I always do. And while we're waiting for it to check for updates, we're going to turn this feature on. We go to Advanced Options, and we're going to turn on this feature and this feature and this feature. These are the features I want on. I think these should be by default personally. And if you're my customer, they will be on by default because I'll make sure. I want to make sure my power savings settings aren't going to put us to sleep while we're live. I do that on my own quite well. So we'll go to the edit power plan and we're going to change to turn off the display after 3 hours and just save that. I don't like all the notifications that pop up, so I'll type in notifications and actions and click on that while we're waiting. Turn that off. I don't want to see it. And we can go down and right click on the taskbar settings. I don't want to see this and I don't want to see this. And under system tray icons, I don't want to see Microsoft OneDrive is off. Good. We'll turn Windows Security on, safely remove on. Perfect. And then finally, the other thing I like to change is getting rid of this little icon down here on the search bar. And I just type it in search permissions. And once I start to type the word permissions, it auto fills at the top. I just hit enter, scroll to the bottom to the last option and turn that off. Now when I close the window, I'm not closing out Windows Update. It's still running in the background. So don't freak out if you think, oh no, I've interrupted. You've not interrupted it. You just go back to Windows Update. You can get there a couple of different ways. I just typically go over here to settings and then Windows Update, and you'll see it's been running this whole time. Even though we closed it, it was still, it didn't impact its behavior at all. Still doing what it was doing. While we're waiting, if we want to get rid of some items on the start menu, we can right click on this unwanted little thing and count to 2 seconds and it's gone. Same here, you can count to 2 seconds and it's gone. You can count to 2 seconds, it's gone. 2 seconds is not bloat, by the way. It's they're like little links. They're not big applications taking up resources. That's what a bloat is. So if you have McAfee or Norton, that's bloat, in my opinion. And that would not be easily uninstalled other than by using a specialty tool called the McAfee removal tool or the Norton removal tool that only McAfee and Norton make. McAfee can take 20 minutes to remove itself from your system. That should tell you, if there's anything defining bloat, if it takes 20 minutes to get it uninstalled, that's pretty bloated, in my opinion. But because we're making these systems, they're not coming from a system integrator. They're not going to have McAfee or Norton on them because we're not going to put it on there. That would be bloat. Let me just look in the chat, see what I've been missing out in. I just wanted to get this 15 minutes of work done sometime in the next 3 hours. So I apologize if I've been ignoring you, but it's like one or the other. I got to be wall-eyed, do one thing over here and one thing over there. May not be very pleasant to look at on camera. Not that it is now, but it would be worse. A little distracting. Lawn Dog says, "Did I see an old CRT in the background of what? In my background? No. No, we haven't had any CRTs since 2012, I think. Everything went flat. You know, look how cheap TVs have become. High definition, low power, lightweight, massive screens, high definition, and they're, you know, a couple $100. It's crazy how inexpensive things have gotten. And they cost less money to run than a CRT. They're less weight, they're easier to move. You can hang them on a wall. Try doing that with a console television from 1982. I'd like to watch. Let me see you hang that thing on the wall, man. No, there's no CRTs. What else? I don't have the strength to lift them anymore, to be honest. It ain't in me. Used to deliver 21-inch CRTs. I'm glad that phase ended as I got older. Any other timing, if I was too young or too old, I would not have been able to do it. just again casually looking through the chat room and eavesdropping on your conversation. Carey, don't look at the previous conversations. We've been having our conversations going. I apologize. Hey, Mike's Unboxing, Reviews, and How-To joins us from the cold, dark UK. His words, not mine. Cheers, Mike. Good to see you, my friend. Mike's got a fantastic YouTube channel, and I would be remiss if I didn't recommend you go check out Mike's, it's a long title, Mike's Unboxing, Reviews, and How-To. Fantastic YouTube channel. He does a great job. And of course, our friend Planet Cryos has been at it, making videos again. If you haven't checked him out in a while, be sure and go back and follow up with Planet Cryos' videos. Of course, our good friend Doug Betts is still going at it nearly daily with Windows Live training. What does he call it? Live Windows training with Doug Betts. Man, everybody needs shorter YouTube handles. That's all I'm saying. I'm getting too old to remember all this stuff. But Doug, again, fantastic content, a lot of interaction. Mike does a lot of interaction as well. Planet Cryos is all going to be edited. I don't know that he does anything live, but he might. Still, Mike's Unboxing has both, edited and live. Doug Betts is always live with a few edits that come out of the live videos, I believe. Salem Techsperts, who I don't know personally, is apparently a child I didn't know I had. I had no idea. But somehow in my youth, something must have happened. And his mom never told me. But boy, he does seem like a chip off the old block. You can tell him I said that. And I expect a Father's Day card. Now, I'd say Mike's Unboxing Reviews, we're nearly the same age. He's like a little brother. Planet Cryos would be like a little brother. Doug Betts would be like a big brother. What's interesting is how relatable these content creators are to me. Because when I see the big content, you know, the ones that get the million plus subscribers, I find it very hard to relate to them. Like, as far as I know, none of them work in the industry, nor have they ever. So there's like this big piece missing. That's what I like about Mike's Unboxing. That's what I like about Doug Betts. That's what I like about Planet Cryos. So we're coming from a place where there's accountability, responsibility, liability, and it's done with a different level of care. It's not so flippant. It's also done with a certain level of budget. Bigger audience, more sponsors, bigger budgets. You can afford to go a little over the top just because it's fun. And hey, I don't want to take the fun out of it. That's why I started doing this. But I will say, Salem Techsperts, boy, you better say that right, is very relatable in the frustrations. And also, he hasn't lost the sense of humor from customers beating him down over the years. It's coming. But he's still got a wonderful sense of humor. But at the same time, he's not goofing around when he's doing the work. The work is being done exactly the way it should be done, as though I trained him myself, as though he were my son. He's doing it to my approval, and he doesn't even know who I am. Mike's Unboxing, he's doing everything the way, as far as I'm concerned, he's supposed to be doing it with the same care and concern. Doug Betts is doing it the same right way with the same care and concern. Planet Cryos, it's always the same. That's what's drawing me to them. That's why I'm recommending you to them. Now, if you just want to have fun, goof around, the enthusiast channels do things correctly sometimes, and sometimes they don't. A lot of times what I find they do is very impractical. I can't afford to do what they're doing. Would be nice. I mean, I might like to watch reviews on Ferraris as people do donuts and burnouts. I can watch whistling diesel, and I won't do any of those things because I can't afford to just put a brand new engine take the engine out of a brand new car, swap it out, and then immediately blow it up. I can't afford to take, you know, $100,000 car and then endurance test it until it breaks in half, literally, and then go, well, that's today's video, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, do you have any idea the kind of money that's happening here? I enjoy watching it, but I'm not really learning anything. Okay, so you shouldn't drop it off a cliff. Okay, well, that's good to know. Appreciate that review. Let's bring in the next $100,000 car and see if we can set it on fire. Why not? It's a Ferrari burning in a field. That's good content. I can't compete, man. I got nothing. Andrew Murray said live Windows training with Doug Betts is abbreviated to LWTWDB. Did you think that was easier to remember? QR75T4. Hey, that's the model of my fax machine. I'm teasing. You know, I think that... Oh, Andrew Murray says the CRT is at the background of Buster's photo. Well, that photo was probably taken many years ago, I'm guessing. And I think he works for a railroad, and they're not exactly known for... I don't know if you're aware of this, but railroad isn't exactly the latest in transportation technology. So I wouldn't be surprised if the railroad's infrastructure was a bit older. I mean, look at Delta Airlines, for crying out loud. I think they're still running off of abaci? Is that a Genesis song? Wow, there's a lot of squirrels running around. Let me just check our updates here. This should be waiting to reboot by now. I've forgotten about it. Too busy amusing myself. There we go. What's going on? Mike's unboxing reviews and how-tos. What's your latest video you want everybody to go check out? Put a link in the chat room. Johnny wants to know, will this motherboard fit in a Corsair 200R case? Every ATX, micro ATX, or mini ITX board ever made will fit in a Corsair 200R case. If it's an eATX, an extended ATX, that may or may not fit, depending on how extended it is. However, rest assured, ATX, micro ATX, and ITX are all the standards that have been around for over 20 years, and therefore any case that applies to those standards still does. Mortant said, I'm still using the 200R computer build that Carey gifted him, and it's running great. When was that? I don't even remember. I mean, I remember doing something, and I'm sure we have the video evidence to prove it, but I can't remember when that was. Mike's unboxing, reviews, and how-to has provided a link here, but it says the video is private. Well, I guess we're not watching it. Kind of getting a mixed message from you, Mike. Are you not wanting us to? Here you go. Let me show you the door. Wait a minute. No, I'm sure that's just a mistake. Being vegan is a mistake as well. Let's see. We're rebooted. We're going to go back to... Oh, there's a delay from the peanut gallery. I just heard Mara go, ha ha. All right, let me go back to the desktop here, and we're going to go back to Windows Update again. And we're also going to check the device manager while we're checking Windows Update and see if anything else is still missing or did it fill in the gaps. You'll notice that after I did my Windows updates, that Microsoft has decided to put back Office 365. So it would have behooved me to just wait and do it once, but because I did it earlier, I have to do it twice. Everything I took out got put back in by one of those updates. So I wasn't really saving any time, was I? Updates failed. Let's go ahead and retry that. And while we're waiting, let me right-click, go to Device Manager. We still have a number of devices. The SM Bus Controller, that's going to be your Intel chipset driver or SMIO driver. Okay, that's really simple stuff. It's pretty common on a newer chipset, 700 series or newer. You might even still see it on some 600 series. And the way we resolve it is quite simple. We're going to just start up our browser. Continue to go through all this nonsense with Edge. This is something you don't have to do with Chrome, by the way. They're the same browser, they're Chromium based. Yeah, but one opens up right away and the other one wants to ask you a bunch of questions before you can proceed. Slows me down, don't have patience. Let's go to ASRock B760 Pro RSD4 drivers. I spelled it wrong, but Google should self-correct. And then we have a version that's Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi. We want to make sure well, in this case, it's not a BIOS, it doesn't matter. We're going to drop down here to support and download. And what we're looking for is the INF driver. I wish they would call this the chipset driver. We shouldn't need anything else. This is likely the one thing we're missing. It's a pretty small download. Let's grab it. Let's open it. And let's extract it. Now, before I install it, what's our Windows Update doing? Windows Update's done. It's happy. Let's close. Well, I can leave this open. We can watch what it does. Here's our extracted folder. We just double click on the executable file here. This is from Intel and it's from ASRock. So we're not using a third-party driver installer. Why does it say Intel GNA? That's not. Why do I haven't scored? Did I click on the wrong thing? It wouldn't be the first time. Here's the other thing I would recommend you do. When we do the search for our motherboard, and I don't care if you've got a pre-built machine, I would recommend that you don't have to search for it every time. If you just go to the support page and then bookmark the darn thing and save that bookmark, because if you go there once, you're probably going to need to go there again. And that way we don't have to search for it every time. So yeah, I clicked on this, I guess, when I wanted this one right here. That's a little bigger, 5.04 megs. Still pretty small download. So it didn't hurt to have that. I just don't think we needed it. And let's go ahead and extract that. And we can close all this out. Open it up. And set up chipset. Yes. And while that's running, and close all that out. Now the screen's a little cleaner. We can see what's going on. We'll hit next, accept, install. And this is probably going to get rid of these devices. And then, yep, they're all gone now. We restart for those changes to take effect. All our drivers are now put in. It's that easy. Don't overthink it. And we can put on the VLC, Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Optimizer. I can run those little commands with regards to enabling the guest fallback on the network, disabling the SMB signing requirement. That's now under security requirements on Windows going forward. And then disabling the Windows recall feature, even though Windows recall isn't actually running, there are files in resources. Remember, this is not a privacy issue I'm worried about. It's a resource issue. This is my stuff. I paid for this. If Microsoft wants to throw a bunch of features on there that consume my memory and my storage, they add more DLLs to the DLL library, they add more code into my registry. I'm not a fan of that. That's why I want to disable recall. Whether they're using it or not, I don't want them using my resources for something I don't want to use. I don't want Copilot. I don't want Bing search engine. That's all consuming resource. Forget the privacy aspect of it. I don't care about that. I want the most amount of power that I paid for because it's mine. I want the most storage space that I paid for. I don't want a hibernation file. I don't want an indexing file. I don't want a recall file. I want all of that removed so all that space belongs to me. This is only a 1 terabyte drive. It's not like I got a lot of space here for me. I want to decide how I use it. It's my decision. Whether or not Microsoft has activated the recall, that's not the point of this. It's still taking up some resources that I don't want taken up. And someone might say, well, it's so small. Yeah, but you take a lot of things that are super small, and before you know, you got 30 of them and you can't get rid of them. I'm just saying, it adds up. All right. Jump over to the chat here. Hello to our friends Andrew Murray and Phil Stodd joining us. Mortant said I sent that system to him in February of 2022. That wasn't even 3 years ago. And I have zero, well, I wouldn't say I have zero recollection of it. I know I sent you something. I can't remember what it was. Things get a little busy, that's all. Just over here spinning plates. Oh, here we go. So what Mike has shared with us, let's see if I get a copyright notification. That would be hilarious. What Mike is sharing with us is, it's going to work. Why is this not working? There he is. There's Mike's unboxing reviews and how to. How to debloat Windows and secure telemetry data, disable Copilot, recall, OneDrive, and more. There we go. Again, not a privacy issue for me. This is a resource issue. That is a very serious face right there. I wouldn't mess with that guy. He looks like he could hurt me. What's he got in the background? Superman, Mike's unboxing, coffee mug. He's got a retro sign, and I've got a Superman sign here. We've got a Superman fan. Looks like he's got something running in the background. He's got his YouTube 100,000 subscriber award recognition. Maybe that's the streamer behind him with the Thermaltake cooler on it, a white build. Got some tools all organized, and oh, that makes my OCD happy. Something hidden in these drawers. Now see, if this was Salem Techsperts, he'd have like a rubber doll in there. What is Mike hiding in his drawers? The world wants to know, Mike. I like the Boba Fett Slave One. Oh, we can't call it that anymore. The Boba Fett ship there on the work pad. Ah, birds of a feather. Right on. All right, I'm distracted again. Let me get back over here to our capture of the machine we built or prepped. I think we're pretty much done with the prep minus a few minor little things. We do have that yellow exclamation here. Let's see what it's whining about. It wants me to set up OneDrive. For security? Really? It wants me to sign in with Microsoft. Really? For security? Okay, no thank you. I think I'm more secure turning those off. Now it should be happy down here, and it is. And our Ethernet connection is what? Is it 1 gig or 2.5? We're on a private network. 2.5, right on. And then the other thing I'll do is we'll go back here to advanced network settings under advanced sharing. And we'll make sure network discovery is on. I guess I don't need file and printer sharing on. Public networks, we want to make sure it's off. In all networks, I want to turn off password protected sharing. Okay, very good. And who makes that network card, you ask? Let's go into Device Manager and see. It's a Realtek. Again, there's no built-in Wi-Fi on this version of the board. There is a version that's about $10 more if you want that, or you can just add your own. Just as a reminder, we talked about that already. All right, so there you go. 15 minutes, 20 minutes of work done in only 2 hours and 48 minutes. It's the Carey way. Milk that job. No, I really enjoy hanging out with you guys. It's not like we're having a food eating competition when we're sitting around to share a meal. We're here to enjoy each other's company as far as I'm concerned, and the meal is secondary to that. This is not the priority. My priority is you. So we certainly appreciate you hanging out with us, being a part of this amazing community, and being able to have the discussions that not only I have with you, but that you have with each other, because I think that's the difference between us and everybody else, is we have this amazing community. And the other is like just a big random assortment of people that gather who may not interact very much with each other. Let me just jump back over to our chat. Mike's unboxing reviews and how-to says, "Look, Mom, I'm on the telly." Yes, that is the streaming PC behind me, he says. The drawers are labeled if you could zoom in. I'm afraid to. I don't know what they might see. Limbs, torsos, heads. I don't know. Some questions were just meant to be rhetorical, Mike. I'm just playing with you, man. Let's see. Nick Caffrey says, "Thanks, Carey. Fridays are something I really look forward to." Well, thank you, Nick. You know, I put a lot of thought into what can I do on a Friday show that stands out above all the other shows I do on any other day of the week. Well, I enjoy all the content I make. Anything that I have that seems exclusive or expensive or more universally appealing to the general audience, I call that the big show, the big Friday show, and I try and save that. Sometimes it's hard for me to do that. I was debating whether or not to do that AI 370 review that I did yesterday, or should I do this, right? That was kind of my back and forth, and I thought about it, and I thought, it really seems like people enjoy watching the build, even though it's more or less a repeat of what I've already done in the past with the same parts I've used in the past. The RAM configuration is a little different. Every system's a little different. But for some reason I can't explain, you guys really do seem to enjoy that, and I can tell by the number of views the video gets. I don't need to look at analytics, just look at the views. Okay, well, clearly that's what people like. And I need to do it anyway. The AI 370, we covered a lot of topics in that video. And maybe only an hour of that video was the actual AI 370 review. I am working on cutting out anything that's not related to the AI 370. And I've got to go through a nearly 4-hour video. And I think when I'm done, it should be 45 minutes to an hour. And I will repost that as a public video on the regular side as soon as I have time to, you know, I've got to watch the whole thing and cut it out. There's a lot to cut out. And I want to do that because there's some people that are like, look, I'm not interested in your views on CPUs and on RAM and answering other people's questions. Those aren't my questions. Well, they're not a part of the community if that's what they think. But that's okay. We can just do, if that's all you want, is just that. We'll cut the crust off for you, okay? That's what I'm virtually just cutting the crust off from somebody saying, I'm not going to eat the crust. Cut that off, or I'm not eating it. Okay, okay. That's what it feels like to me. But I get it. Not everybody understands the community aspect, and that's fine. That's why we appreciate the few who do. Phil Stott said he likes the quote, "Watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves." Mortant said he just sent me a picture of the computer I sent him. Is it just the outside? Because it looks like a 200R. Is it a picture of the inside? I'm sure we have your build video in the library. I just don't know which one it is. Corsair 200. I signed it. Oh, you got 2 optical drives in there. I've got a customer that wants to move 2 optical drives into a new build, and you know, you can still find these 200Rs for sale on eBay for about $200. I don't think we're going to spend $200 for a $60 case. All right, there's one photo. It looks like you sent another photo here. What's this? Oh, these are the specs. Oh, that's what I needed to see. So I always have a little white index card, and I write down on a white index card, because I can't remember what the heck everything is. So that is my chicken scratch. Could have been a doctor. And it says it's Core i5-10600K with 16 gigs of RAM. It's a Gigabyte B460 motherboard. It's got a, well, you know I'm in trouble if I can't read my own writing. A T-Force 500 gig NVMe drive from Team Group. It's a Mugen 5 cooler. That's a great cooler. And a 500 watt EVGA power supply. And it says Windows is activated. So what I'll do, like with this motherboard here, this is going to go on to a small stack of other motherboards. I don't know what's underneath the heatsink. Is that an 11th gen, a 10th gen? I mean, I can tell, I can see the box. I can see what the motherboard is, but I have no idea how much RAM did I put in there? What SSD is hiding under this heatsink? I don't want to take it back apart or have to hook it all back up and turn it on just so I can figure out what the heck it is. Is this what I'm looking for? That's a lot of work to go through each one. So my organization is I grab an index card and a pen, and Mara got me this great pen. I love this pen. And it's always within my reach. The most recent tools are always at the front of the drawer, and the thing I don't use as often gets kind of pushed to the back. Where's my pen? Man, this pen is like the best pen ever. It's been right in front of me the whole time. This is a cross ballpoint roller gel pen, refillable roller gel, and it just glides. Medium point, black ink, old school, so I could put it in my pocket protector. Ferrari logo. Best pen ever. So I get that. You can get index cards super cheap at the Walmart, whatever. And I'll write down CPU, motherboard, RAM, what's the capacity and the speed, and is it DDR4, DDR2? I don't know. Write it down. SSD, make, model, gen. So it might be Samsung 970, 2 terabyte, Gen 3. I might even write down the speed, you know, the crystal disk mark numbers on it. Just the read speed. PSU is a EVGA 500 watt. If it's modular, I'll write modular. If it's not, I don't write anything else. Windows 11 Home, Windows 11 Pro, and then whether or not I've activated it or not. And with that, when I'm looking through the motherboards, when I'm trying to figure out, somebody says, hey, do you have this? I can quickly look and see if I have that or something close to it very, very quickly. It's just a matter of, I take the index card and I just lay it on top of the motherboard. There's no worry of anti-static shock or anything like that. And then I'll put this motherboard on top of another motherboard. Well, I should rephrase that. This motherboard in box will sit, and another box will sit on top with another motherboard, and I can go about 3 high. And then I can just quickly look and see on the index cards what I've got very quickly. And that way I can get something done. My goal is to be out of motherboards, but I seem to be acquiring them faster than I can get rid of them. I mean, it's not a terrible problem to have. It's just taking up space. But With this build, we have another identical one to do, but I have to find some RAM and storage to put into it because I don't want to buy new stuff for these builds. These are just trying to keep it cheap. We've got the 2 Ultra 7 builds and the 9900X build coming up, and I don't know what I'll do with them. They're going to be fantastic systems. I want to use them, but I just don't know for what. We also have a number of great mini PCs I could be using, but I'm not. But I do have plans to use some of them for a little project coming up. I'd also like to revisit the TerraMaster SSD NAS and take a look at some of the apps like the backup and how that works. And I also want to take a deeper dive into, Mara really wanted me to get a smart managed switch. I've never used a managed network switch in my life. I don't know why in the world anybody would want to outside of a big corporation. She comes from a big corporation. She spent more than half of her life doing just that. So to not have that equipment at home makes her feel vulnerable. So I said, okay, I went on AliExpress. I found a 10 gig switch because we're on 10 gig now, and I'm spoiled. Oh, 10 gig is nice. It's very nice. Sorry, I was just nerding out on my 10 gig. We're not getting 10 gig out of it. Our Synology NAS won't deliver 10 gig with 4 hard drives. This is not going to happen. But we are seeing anywhere from 600 to 800. And I got to tell you, even my Wi-Fi on my laptop is moving data faster than a gigabit cable. My laptop is moving the data. Say I want to copy a big file over to the NAS now. The mechanical hard drive NAS. We're talking the Synology, not the TerraMaster. Because it can't go 10 gigs either. You need more drives. I am moving wirelessly files that are moving at 150, 160 megabytes per second over Wi-Fi to the NAS. To give you some perspective, at Studio A, we're still on 1 gig over there. The Synology is still a 1 gig Synology connected to a 1 gig Netgear XR700 router. That's all 1 gig. It moves data about 120 megabytes per second over the 1 gig cables. I am faster than that on Wi-Fi. And wired, I'm 4 times faster than that. So we get this 10 gig, you're taking a shot every time I say so. We get this 10 gig smart, I call it smart, it's a managed switch. Mara starts playing with it. It's kind of a rip-off of Cisco's operating system. It's kind of Cisco-y. You can see where they got their inspiration or theft. Anyway, it's AliExpress. What do you want? It works really well, but a lot of the managed features don't apply in a home environment. Hey, Mara? What was the deal with the managed switch being not very useful? Why is it not very... You wanted it because you wanted more control, but it turns out... What's the problem?
So, for the most part, if you're going to use it using one VLAN in a home environment, you're totally fine. If you're going to add more than one VLAN, you have to have a router that has layer 3 capability. You have to be, because a VLAN is basically a security boundary.
Stop.
You can't cross the security boundary without something that's layer 3.
My head's going to explode.
Okay.
Essentially, what I heard was blah, 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 VLAN, blah, 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 layer 3. Are we talking about a bean dip? Did something, blah, 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 router.
OSI layers.
OSI layers, is that some kind of onion, spinach?
All people seem to need data processing. That's how you remember the OSI layers.
All people, AP, IPA?
All people seem to need data processing.
All people seem, APS, T,
need data processing.
DP. Blah, blah? Garble, block, block. Garble, block, block.
So if you'd like me to get on camera and to talk about what that is and how to explain that.
We'll let the audience say, do you want, not today,
yeah.
maybe over the weekend. We'll bring the switch out.
Sure.
We've not implemented it yet. She's been testing it.
I have been.
Testing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to test the cheesecake a little later. I don't know where that came from. She's been tasting at the
Tasting, yes.
Yeah, at the winery. She hasn't been officer. I've not been drinking. I've been tasting. Blah, blah, blah. OSI layer 3, VLAN,
Also trunks, .1Q encapsulation.
trunks. What?
.1Q encapsulation on your
Dot
trunk.
1Q.
In order to carry more than one VLAN, there's a lot of things that go into configuring a managed switch or a switch that what I like, I
Is
like
something
to call
burning in
a
here?
swouter.
Oh,
Meaning
it's
a
my.
switch and a router, a switch that can do layer 3. So that's my.
How many layers are there?
How many layers are there in the OSI layer? 7.
Yeah.
All people seem to need data processing. 7.
Oh, people need to seem to.
All people seem to need data processing. 7.
And each one of those represents a layer in the TCP/IP protocol?
No, it represents the layers of communication, networking, your physical layer, your data link layer, your application layer, your transport layer.
If any of you are masochistic and would like to learn more about this, we can have the switch here on the bench. We can have Mara behind the bench, and maybe somebody can translate. No matter, my clients are all small or medium-sized businesses, none of which would ever require a managed switch. That's why they're my client. That's why I'm so inexpensive. I don't need to know this. When you're in a big corporation and you've got governmental regulatory agencies that you must comply with, and then on top of that, you've got thousands of employees that come and go, and you have to be able to have documented policies and procedures. So no matter which employee is doing it, it's always done the same. It's always following regulatory requirements. You've got websites that your customers need to visit that have to respond quickly, be able to accept payments. You have to follow the financial requirements of the payment processing companies. You need the website to be updated, secured at all times, and you have an internal website or an intraweb that provides the employees with like human resources and other things you might need as an employee within the company. Then you've got your data resources, your server resources, and then you're adding more to the company, you're hiring more people, you've got to bring in more cables, you've got to have cabling people. They're full-time employees. They're always working, they're always installing or removing or moving, adding or deleting, changing. It's never-ending full-time job. And in the department that Mara was in was a leadership position dealing with a particular department in IT. There's many departments in IT, by the way. And then if you're a company such as a utility, you're on 24/7, right? If your power goes out at your house, you expect to be able to call the power company whenever that happens. And there's people working at the power company 24/7. The same with the water, the same with any utility. Somebody, even if they're not answering the phone, somebody's there 24/7, maintaining it, keeping it going, because it's a utility that it's never supposed to turn off. And it has to be always secured because they're an attack vector, a very high value target for people, and typically in other countries, typically for no other reason than because we can, to hack into and dismantle or hinder or hamper. It's a never ending job. So people that think IT is dying, they're just not looking outside of the consumer space. Yeah, nobody's answering my Craigslist ads anymore. Okay, that's not really thinking big, is it? So a lot of job opportunities exist there, and especially cybersecurity jobs. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat said, someone call the doctor. It's a little late. I think the damage has been done. Thank you, Planet Cryos. Planet Cryos is sending us, he's got an older 1200 socket motherboard because a viewer sent us, hold on, if you hear cracking, that's my knees. A viewer sent us this chip right here. And they said, hey, Carey, I found a computer in a dumpster and it had a pretty new CPU in it. And I don't have any use for it, but I thought you might. I thought, you know, if you wanted it, I'll send it to you. And I said, great, that'd be wonderful, thank you. That's pretty much all I knew. There's still thermal compound on it. This is an i5 11600K. He doesn't know why the computer was in the dumpster, but one would assume CPUs don't typically go bad. So he did an organ transplant, if you will. He's removed the brain, put it in the mail, and sent it to me. And then I got it, and I said, wait a minute, I don't have any motherboards that this will fit in. So I went on to Amazon, I went on to Newegg, and I'm looking for boards, and they're all just crappy, like kiosk type motherboards. They're not proper boards like I was buying during the era that these were popular. So even though you can still buy these brand new, finding a motherboard, if you can find a modern, 590, say, motherboard, they're like twice to three times their original cost now because they don't make them and they're more rare. The more rare something is, the higher the price, the supply and demand. So for the price that it's going to cost to build this, you might as well build this. Less money and it's more power. But if you're going to give this to me, and if a viewer like Planet Cryo says, I've got a motherboard that's going to fit that, I'm not using it, do you want it? Well, we got ourselves a video. I got RAM, I got storage, I got power supplies, I got cases. That's all pretty well universal. CPUs and sockets, not so much. So with the help of the community, we're going to have this built. I don't know what we'll do with it, but I wouldn't shake a stick at that. I mean, 11600K is still pretty darn good. So we also don't know that this works. Maybe it's bad. Maybe this is the reason why the whole computer was in the dumpster. I don't know. But likely, statistically, we don't very often see CPUs go bad. So as long as I don't have any money in it, it sounds like fun. I can afford to be an enthusiast if I'm not paying for it. Just being honest. Mortant said I had to learn that for my job, OSI layers. I don't want to learn that for any job. That's so over the top for... It'd be like me wanting to learn biology because I want to be a chef. Well, if you understand the way the body processes certain food, we talk about gastronomy, and we're going to talk about the liver and the kidneys and the filtering, the process of the blood cells. I just want to make mac and cheese. What's so hard about that? That's the way I see it. Mortant said he's glad he doesn't do that anymore. Well, I'm glad I never started. I got no regrets. Feel like I dodged a bullet. Mara says I was all over the company as a network engineer, systems administrator, remote access, lead, CIP, manager, security, tech lead, janitor, maybe? I don't know. Parking lot attendant. Pick a lane. That's all I'm saying. Pick a lane. Now, when you're at a company as long as she was, you likely have done multiple, worked your way up, I would hope. Planet Kraus contributed $2 earlier, and he says, my head hurts. Join the club. Along with this review is a bottle of Tylenol. Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How-Tos says all these acronyms are giving me PTSD. IKR. Need that over with ASAP. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go watch my HD TV, which I'm streaming over IP. That's before I go to the ATM in my 4x4 and enter my PIN. Is this getting any better? No. Making it worse. Planet Cryo says earlier, $2 super chat said, sup, dude? You might have to explain what that means to Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How-To. You see, sup, dude is the American equivalent of whatcha. I'm kidding. I'm assuming you already know all this. These are my attempts at humor. Most of them don't work. It helps when we have a live audience, then I can read the room. I can tell from your silence how effective I'm being. Mara says, I love new experiences in education. Try it live on camera. Let me know if you really enjoy that. Nick Caffrey says, stop digging, Carey. Timothy Rehnquist says, has a Threadripper rebuild coming up. We already did that as a members only video on Monday. We did the Threadripper. It wasn't a rebuild, it was just a CPU replacement. The Threadripper 1950X, that was the first community build we ever did. It was the first time I met Mitch. He helped us with camera work. Is not Windows 11 compatible. The 1950X, any Zen or Zen Plus architecture from AMD, apparently is not Windows 11 compatible. If there are exceptions, I'm not aware. So our original AMD 2400G build, using a regular AM4 socket at 2400G, we had to upgrade that. Otherwise, no Windows 11 for you. So all we had to do is change the CPU out. It's a pretty easy job. So we did that on members only. And then we got a second generation Threadripper, a 2950X instead of a 1950X. It was still over $300 used from eBay, and didn't include the Torx wrench, and it did not include the orange socket frame. So I took that off the old one. Thankfully I had it. Got to watch for this stuff when you're purchasing it. I mean, the seller took pictures of what you're going to get. That's exactly what he sent. That's my bad for not noticing, but it didn't end up being a problem. And then we just popped the cooler off, removed the Threadripper CPU, put the new Threadripper CPU in, reapplied thermal compound, put the cooler back on, installed Windows 11. Everything's fine. There is some discussion that there will be a $30 fee for people who don't want to give up Windows 10. Microsoft is saying now that for $30, you can extend the support of your Windows 10 for one more year. That's it, for consumers. Now, they've never done this before. They've done it for businesses. So I'm still finding this hard to believe. But Tom's Hardware, a couple other, like hothardware.com, and I think maybe The Verge, have covered this topic recently, like this last week, that Microsoft has released prices, but without any details on how you would pay for it. So if you absolutely insist that you want to stay behind the times and stick on Windows 10 in 2026, $30 will get you there. I don't want to do that. I don't want to stay in the past. I want to keep moving forward. I want to be able to offer my customers solutions for today's problems, not problems they have from 10 years ago. That's just not good for business to do it the other way around. So I have to know what I'm doing. Whether I like it or not is not really part of the equation. I don't care if I like it. If I want to eat tomorrow, I better learn to like it. That's what my father would tell me. So it's why it's a job. It's why it's not playtime in the sandbox. This is what I get paid to do. And I want to encourage my customers to maintain the best system reliability, security, and performance possible by making sure at all times that they are running a supported operating system. There's not a customer I have that must have Windows 10. I am going to strongly encourage my customers not to buy the extended support. Instead, let's go to Windows 11. We've got a year to get it done. We have plenty of time. And all the computers my customers have will all run Windows 11. We just haven't. Nobody has to replace anything. And if they did have to replace it, the cost of the replacement versus $30 a year times however many PCs you got 10 PCs, that's $300. And you're just getting one more year. Well, we got a year now for free. Right? So why don't we just take advantage of this year? Because all you're doing is procrastinating and putting off the inevitable. It's coming, right? So postponing the inevitable doesn't change the inevitable. It just gives you a little more time to have anxiety. Once you get it done, anxiety's gone. Things are a little different. The first 2 weeks may be a little bit of adjustment for you to figure it out. But then after that, you'll never think of it again. You'll be comfortable and familiar, and it won't be a big deal. Everybody makes it out to be a bigger deal than it is. And then once it's done, and they whine and complain about how terrible it is, after 2 weeks, they're right back to work again, and everything's familiar and comfortable. 2 weeks. It's the average amount of time it takes. And it's not that big of a deal. What did you have for dinner 2 weeks ago today? I couldn't tell you. It's not like you're going to be left with a scar. It's not that memorable, really. It's not a big deal. Kelly Stewart wants to know if the OSI was from the $6 Million Man, the Office of Scientific Investigation. Man, I knew that term. OSI, that's where Steve Austin worked, for sure. That's where Oscar worked, right? How come I can remember that? But I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner 2 weeks ago today. Andy Archer mentions Microsoft has put it on their website, but as far as I know, they've not disclosed how you would pay that and how you would activate it. I think it's a terrible idea. Terrible idea. I can't think of anybody that should need to run Windows 10. It's an emotional problem, and it's generally a problem only older people have. It's a weird, I can't wait for the scientific community to classify this as a disease. And it's a disease young people typically do not have. Young people like change. The world is a wonder. Everything is amazing. They don't want, there might be a little bit of like retro interest in, like a Walkman. They might find a Walkman interesting, right? I think it's terrible, but they might be like, hey, this is pretty cool. No, it was never cool. It sucks. And you know why we don't use them anymore? Because they sucked. They sucked then and they suck now. They eat up the batteries, the tape gets eaten, the sound quality's terrible, the headphones are terrible, but that was the best we had, so we liked it. But by today's standards, terrible. But they might go, yeah, it's really cool, it's retro. You can have it. Take it. Knock yourself out, kid. But when it comes to like computers and technology, they typically want the latest and greatest, right? And then as we get older, it seems like we're just like, oh, this is going to be a big hassle. It's almost like we get lazy. I know I have been, sort of like, oh, I don't want to do that again. I've done it so many times. Here we go again. And I think that's part of it. But it's all up here. So as a computer tech, I can't fix that. I can't reach in your brain and turn a screwdriver because I'd have it fixed like that if I could. This is something where we have to drop the laziness, drop the attitude. If you want to be young at mind and young at heart, if you want to be young at heart, you've got to be young at mind. And somewhere we lose our way. Somewhere we become annoyed. Where before we were drawn in, now we're pushing away. But nothing actually changed other than our attitude. And if we can fix the attitude, this is a problem that goes away. It's not a problem I can hold it in my hands and I can't put it in a package and send it to you. It's a choice you have to make. And you say, you know what? If the 7-year-old across the street gets this, I'll be darned if I can't figure it out. I didn't understand T9 texting. It didn't make any sense to me. And I said, you know what? It's not that important. I don't text people anyway. This is, back in the day. Other people are T9 texting, and I don't get it, right? And I remember I was at the Consumer Electronics Show covering it for Newegg or something. No, it wouldn't have been Newegg, but a few years before. And I had some downtime where I had to wait, and I had nothing to do. And it was just a flip phone. It wasn't like I'm going to surf the web on a flip phone. So I'm like, you know what? I just made the decision right there and then. I'm going to figure this whole T9 thing out. I'm going to teach myself because that's how I like to learn. And I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and I pulled out my flip phone and I started playing with it. And then I figured it out and it was super easy. It was super easy once I understood what it was. Oh, I got to hit the number 9 3 times. I see. Okay. Now I hit the number 7 3 times. Now I hit the number 2 once. Okay. And then it was like, really? I've been putting off and letting it roll in my head about, having all these thoughts about learning it and whether or not I should bother. And the actual amount of time I spent when I actually sat down to figure it out was like 3% of the amount of brain power that I had been spending thinking about doing it. Doing it actually took less time and effort than thinking about it did. I'm just saying. And now that information is completely worthless to me because we don't do that anymore. But for a little while, I had it made. Now, never mind, I'm going to just push the 7 button 3 times so I can text somebody. Because I refuse to get a new smartphone. I'm going to just stick with my T9 texting. That's what it all sounds like to me. Andy Archer says, a quote from Microsoft, the ESU program, which is what, extended support utilities, extended support, something, for consumers will be a 1-year option available for $30. Program enrollment will be available closer to the end of support in 2025. So they're basically saying, we're going to do this, but we'll reveal the details in the final months before Windows 10 support ends, which is October 14th of 2025. So we can expect Microsoft will offer something maybe 3 months before. That would be my guess. And I'm just guessing. I don't know. I wouldn't think they'd wait till after support ended, but I would imagine signing up for it now doesn't make any sense either. So if I were Microsoft, I'd start offering it in summer. I think once you wait till fall, it's a little late. I think summer, but we'll see. When we know, we'll share the information with you, but I don't advise any of you to take Microsoft up on this offer. I think it's a big mistake. Error in judgment. All you're doing is prolonging the inevitable. You might as well rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with. It's not a big deal. But you do whatever you're going to do. Trevor Dunn says, what bugs me with Windows 11 is they keep changing the start menu layout. I don't know many people that use the start menu anymore. Like, even going to use the start menu as a way to launch your applications feels like you must have been using computers for a while, that you still want to go about it that way. I'm not a big fan that these changes occur on our cell phones. These changes occur on, well, here's how you do it on iOS, whatever, and now you got to do it differently. Now on Android, what this thing was you used to be able to do, and you know that's not the same anymore. I used to have this great ability in the photo viewer in Windows. When I would scan a receipt, the old photo viewer enabled me to essentially sharpen the receipt and darken the print on it, because these FedEx receipts sometimes came out very light. And it was a super easy thing, and just move a slider and the text got really dark. And then you could read the receipt easier. And then they changed the photo viewer, and now if it can still do it, I don't know how to do it anymore. And you know, I can still sharpen the photo and do all those other things, but that one simple feature, and I forget what it was called, it was right there, right up front. And this happens on our apps on our phones all the time. It's constant. But they have to do that in order to expand the features, keep it compatible, and keep it secure. We can't, if you always do the same thing over and over and over again, somebody watching you is going to watch your patterns. They know when you leave for work. They know when your house is empty. That's when you're going to get robbed. They know when you're going to park your car. You always do the same thing. People are watching, and they're going to, even if they don't intentionally pay attention, it might just occur to them, this keeps happening at this time. That might be useful information. In the world of the internet where everything's so anonymous, hackers are always trying to break in. They're going to use the latest and greatest technology out of the box thinking to try and use something in a way it was never intended to be used. And every once in a while, they're going to get through. And then they have to secure that. And when they secure that, it may not be able to do a feature it used to do, so we're going to replace that with a different feature. They also need money to keep coming in. The employees still want to go to work tomorrow. They need something to do. The investors are all going to cash out if they're not making any money. The investors go away, the company closes up, and then this product stops getting updated, and it's no longer useful in 2 years. Good luck. The process should make sense. And it's the same with any commodity that's being sold. A car, groceries. There's food at the grocery store today that did not exist when I was a child. We didn't have acai. We didn't have that. There's these super fruits and things. We never had that in the 70s and 80s. And now suddenly it's all everybody can eat. The variety. An average grocery store in America has like 50,000 items to pick from. Not in the 80s, it didn't, I tell you. So we're getting more and more choice, more and more selection, more diverse offerings. And in order to do that, sometimes food that was made is no longer allowed to be made that way. You can't use this ingredient. It was found to be harmful. So now the Cheez-Its don't taste like they used to. You know what I mean? And then people stop buying them because they're not as good. Well, that's because we took this thing out that caused cancer, according to the FDA. But that's what gave it all its flavor. Can I pick between the cancer flavorful version? No, you can't. No, we have to change the recipe. Other times the ingredients get very hard to source or very expensive. And you go, well, geez, what do we do now? We can't get this particular ingredient without tripling the price of the product. Nobody's going to buy it. So, or other times it's just there's a cheaper ingredient and we can make more profit and sell it to the customer at the same price. Whatever way, things will always change in every aspect of your life, because companies have to keep giving you a reason to come back. And that's why we have jobs to go to. Otherwise, you'd be an actor. You'd fill a role, you'd film your scene, go find another job, we're done with you. The movie's over, we don't need you anymore. So as an actor, right, you would move, you'd have a great job, let's say. You may not do anything wrong, but the movie bombs at the box office and now you can't find any more work. If you work on the crew and you're the guy doing the lighting or you're the camera operator, you just go film another project, hopefully, but they have to find new work when that's over too. But in a traditional, normal career, you go to work every day. You don't have these kind of problems actors and film industry and media have. And at the same time, when you're making technology, we're still evolving it, right? It's still getting faster, more efficient, lower power, less heat, less price, or the same price, but you're getting more for the money. And now the computer can do more, like neural processing units weren't a thing. Now they are. AI acceleration in some tasks is going to become more and more commonplace, but kind of rare right now for a home user. But give it time. It's got to start somewhere. This is why it took a long time for us to get to 64-bit operating system. Here's the argument. Intel and AMD say, why should we make a 64-bit processor when Windows doesn't support 64-bit processors? And Microsoft says, why should we pay the millions of dollars in research and development to develop a 64-bit operating system if there are no 64-bit processors? And each one's pointing the finger at the other one going, you spend the money first. We'll see how it works out. And they're saying, you spend the money first. It's a chicken or egg kind of thing. And somehow, eventually, it gets done. Just to remind you, a 32-bit operating system, such as Windows XP, or any Microsoft operating system that came before it, had a maximum RAM limitation of 4 megabytes. 4 megabytes? Is that right? 4 gigabytes. It's tiny. I think it's 4 gigs. You couldn't go above that because the mathematics of the base 2 system of 32-bit, you're going to hit that limit mathematically. So it didn't matter if you had an Apple, if you had Linux, if you had 32-bit, that's your limit. So the same holds true if we want to keep advancing, and now you want 16 gigs of memory, you want 32 gigs of memory. Well, you need a 64-bit operating system, which requires a 64-bit processor. That requires a whole new design on the motherboard, and then now we got USB 3, USB 4, Wi-Fi this, Wi-Fi that, Bluetooth this. It goes on and on and on. And the evolution of this technology should always be a welcome thing. You should say, maybe it's not for me, but I'm glad to see it continues to get better and better. Sometimes in that process, they drop the ball. I think everybody's dropped the ball this year, from Intel to AMD to even NVIDIA, when it comes to the value they're offering and the rush to market, being a little too quick on some things. Just looking at that profit margin, get that thing out. I don't care if it's ready or not. We got people yelling, "Take my money," and we're standing here waiting. That sort of we'll serve no wine before it's time. That doesn't exist in technology. Send it now, but it's not ready. Don't care. Get that sale. Go get that sale. We'll fix it later. That's the world we're living in right now. I'd like to see that change, but I can assure you, the negative press that AMD and Intel and NVIDIA have received for these behaviors are hurting. Intel posted some pretty major quarterly losses. The investors aren't going to tolerate that. Never mind the customers. If Intel wants to stay in business, they got to straighten their act out. Same with AMD, same with NVIDIA. If NVIDIA wants to come out with a 50 series card that's going to cost $3,000, they're going to piss off a lot of people. We'll see what happens. But sometimes these companies lose their way. Everything's too easy. They think they can get away with anything. They get a little flippant, a little careless. And the price they pay for that is massive. This may put some companies permanently out of business, and tens of thousands of people could lose their jobs. It's nothing to be happy about. Ideally, the company recognizes the error and they correct it as soon as possible. It's best for the customer, it's best for the company, it's best for the investors. There's no reason for them to do anything else. They're all going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. Got to acknowledge it, fix it, make it right, keep going. So if we look at the way a 32-bit operating system works mathematically, just real quick and we'll wrap this up. I can't explain the math to you, but Google can, because I don't have this stuff memorized. But a 32-bit operating system, like I say, it doesn't matter if it's Macintosh, if it's Apple, if it's Linux, if it's Windows. A 32-bit OS has a 4 gig RAM limit because I mean, really, you wouldn't be able to use all 4 gig anyway, right? I mean, the amount that you could use would probably be somewhere like 3.5. There's a little overhead there. But mathematically, you can... I'm going to read what it says. A program sees memory as an array of bytes. And those bytes go from address 0 to 2 to the power of 32. And that's going to take you to 4 gigs. So 4 gigs is a theoretical maximum memory you can use with a 32-bit operating system. Now, practically, you can't use the full 4, right? Because I said there is overhead. You need address space for other things like your CPU and your hard drive. They need a little bit of memory space as well. That's going to come out of that 4, but it's still 4. You just don't have, you can't touch it because the system needs part of that 4, but it's there. What you can't do is go over 4, nor can any of the components utilize anything over 4. Because of the math, 32 bits are able to represent numbers up to 2 to the power of 32. Okay, so that's a total of 4 billion, what is it? It's a big number. 4294967295, or 1 gigabyte. So 2 to the 32nd power is a maximum of 4 gigabits, or gigabits. As you can imagine, if you take 2 to the power of 64, you get a far bigger number. Far bigger number. Let's do it in the math. 2 to the power of 64. Where's my calculator? Is it 2 terabytes of memory? What is it? It's a big number. Might be bigger than that. because you're exponentially doubling every single time. I'm sure somebody in the chat probably already has the answer. Again, I don't normally get to this level of the engineering of it because I don't care. Every time we double, if we go from 32 to 64-bit, we exponentially increase our limits. If we go from a 64-bit operating system to 128-bit, the numbers get insane by today's perspective. Insane. So you just keep multiplying on top of itself 32 times. Just to go from 32-bit to 64-bit, you're multiplying itself again 32 more times. That's why your end result is so much. It's not just doubling it. It's far more than that. It's doubling it 32 times effectively. So in any event, I think that'll wrap it up for today. It's a long show, but I've just enjoyed hanging out with you guys, talking with you. And Johnny wants to know, what power supply wattage would you use on this board? 500 watts. I would, on a board like this, 500 watts. You're probably only going to use 300, maybe. You get 200 watts overhead with that. If you're going to add a graphics card, your graphics card, depending on the make and model, will tell you what they recommend as a minimum. If we put a graphics card in this, that's not the latest and greatest, but if we stick with a 40 series card, 30, 20, 10 series NVIDIA card, 750 watts is probably fine. If you want to go on the super high-end 4090 Ti, something like that, maybe a 3090 Ti, 850 watts. You have to think about how many watts will come out of the outlet that you're plugging your computer into in your wall. In most houses in America, 15 amps. 15 amps, which is, if you multiply that times 120 volts, we get to a number of 1,500 watts, if I'm not mistaken. If it's 20 amps, I think it's 1,800 watts. So when you see somebody advertising a 1,500 watt power supply, the way wiring is done in a home is you have what's called a circuit, and likely every outlet, and it might be not just in one room, but in neighboring rooms, is connected to the next outlet, and they all share the same breaker on the circuit board for that circuit, totaling a maximum of everything plugged in not exceeding 1,500 watts. So if you've got a laser printer plugged in from 1982 where the lights dim every time it turns on, and then you're going to add a 4090 Ti into a Threadripper build that's sucking down, you have a 1,500 watt power supply and you're using, say, 1,200 watts of that at any given time, there's not really anything left for you to plug in a lamp without blowing the circuit in your house. Unless you're wired with a 20 amp outlet, most American homes aren't. So it's not just a simple matter of buying whatever you want and plugging it in. No differently than you shouldn't, during Christmas time, they talk about people plugging all their Christmas lights into surge protectors that are plugged into other surge protectors that are plugged into other surge protectors. It becomes a fire hazard. It can blow the circuits. Now that we do LED lighting, it's much lower power than the old school incandescent stuff. But still, there is a limit to what you can plug into one circuit. Most people don't know what one circuit is in their house. They can't tell you if the outlet in this room is connected to the outlet in that room, unless at some point they plugged a hairdryer or a microwave in and turned it on at the same time and both rooms went out and everything else stayed on. That's usually the way the average homeowner knows these two rooms are connected somehow electrically, right? Because they're on the same circuit. I would never advise you to put a bigger power supply in more than 20% over what you need, because it costs you more in electricity. They don't run efficiently. If I put a 1,000 watt power supply on this and we're only drawing 300 watts from it, the cost of running, the electric cost of running that power supply will be higher, because that power supply is only efficient when you get up towards within 20% of its ability. So it's cheaper to buy a lower power supply, and it's cheaper to run a lower power supply, unless you buy a 500 watt power supply and you're using 500 watts of it. In this case, your power supply is going to run hot, it's going to lose efficiency, and it's probably going to die sooner than normal because you're degrading it faster. You always want a little overhead, 20% overhead at the most. Anything more than that, you're losing it at the wall. It's not It's not going to draw more than it's using. It's just not going to convert the electricity coming out of the wall to what you're using as efficiently, therefore costing you more in electricity over time. So when you see a 1200 watt power supply, you got to think to yourself, if I buy that and I actually used it, if I was actually drawing 1200 watts from this, what else do I have plugged in my house that's going to cause the circuit to blow and my whole computer's going to shut down, I'm going to lose all my work, because it ain't going to take much to get to that extra 300 watts. And I think you got to think about it and make sure you plug it into a 20 amp outlet. You might need to get an electrician out and swap out your wiring, or swap out your circuit breaker if your wiring already supports 20 amps, or maybe not do that. So power supplies overall pretty simple, but when people want to spend a lot of money for extremes, that's usually the ones that have the problems. So when I suggest a 500 watt power supply, I'm not being cheap, I'm being practical. I have sold this board exclusively with anywhere from a 450 to 650 watt power supply. They're cheap. They work well. I haven't seen a bad one in a long time, or have one go bad in a long time. They don't get hot. They're not loud. But again, when you start getting into the extremes, you start getting into the money and the problems. Lawn Dog said for a 20 amp circuit, you'd need 12 gauge solid copper wire. On a 15 amp circuit, you'd need number 14 solid copper wire. So the smaller the number, the thicker the cable is. I know that seems backwards. Lawn Dog said he's a retired electrician. Well, he survived. He didn't get electrocuted, so he must have known what he was doing. I appreciate the information, Lawn Dog. I don't know that stuff. I don't care. That's not what I do. But I appreciate it. I believe you. I believe everything you say is true. It all sounds right. Vital Vision says, hey, it's a great show. Lots of laughs and lots of education. Thanks, Carey. And Mara, take care and bye for now, everyone. Lawn Dog says, oh, I got zapped a few times. I got zapped by 480. Now, that kind of bit me hard. Yeah, I imagine if you're doing the job, you're going to get shocked a few times, or you ain't working hard enough. Get back to work. I want to see your hair curl. Come on, let's go. What are you doing, standing around? One more time, I want to give a super shout out to our friends Buster, Oystein, Frankie B, Paul Gray, Tom Jackson. Also to our friend Moritant, of course, as always. Philip Stoddard, thank you so much. Roy Shaver, Charlie Purdy, G.I. Pollock, Robert Barnes, a very generous contribution again. Thank you guys so much for your generosity and your most importantly, your kindness. I really appreciate your kindness. And, just thanks for being the amazing community. To all the members, to all of our regular viewers that are just here enjoying the content and supporting us just by being a part of the community, thank you, all of you. We really, you give me a reason to do this. You really do. When you stop giving me the reason, when you go away, or you make my job miserable, not that you do, but if that were to happen, I wouldn't want to do it anymore. So I love that you guys enjoy the content, because I love making it. And it makes me feel like it's worth doing when I see the kind of love and support that not only do I get from you, but you give to each other on the internet. That doesn't happen on the internet. Have you been there before? So it's very valuable. It's very rare. And I thank you for being a part of it. Thanks, of course, to Mara for all the work she does behind the scenes. And, of course, to our friends at Acronis and Roboform. And I almost said the wrong site. SCD keys or VIP CDK deals are kind of the same thing. We have coupon codes for all of these in video links below today's video. The parts list for everything we used is available as well. Well, we're not paid anything to make this video from these companies. They don't even know who we are. We do make a small commission if you purchase anything from Amazon using our links. And I mean anything, except gift cards. So if you click on a link that takes you to this motherboard, and that link takes you to Amazon from my video notes, and you're like, okay, that's interesting, I don't want to buy that, but while I'm at Amazon, I do want to pick something up, no matter what it is, because you clicked on my link to take you to Amazon. Anything you buy in that Amazon visit, I make a small commission from anonymously. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are. All I know is this particular item was sold on this day for this amount of money that earns you this much commission. That's it. You don't pay anything any different. It's a wonderful anonymous way to support the show for things you were going to buy anyway. On the other hand, it also saves you the effort of having to type these model numbers in. It can be a pain in the butt. So by clicking the link, it does all the work for you. ASRock B760. Is that a Space Pro? Okay, and then it's an RS/D4. There's a D5, there's a D4 Wi-Fi. It can get really confusing, and so it takes all that confusion out. So if nothing else, it takes you to the right product the first time. You don't have to guess. Thank you. Oh, Oystein's there in the chat. I just saw you. Oystein joining us from Norway. Terry says, great show. And thank you, Terry. Curtis says, great show. Right on. Robert Jones. Oh, yes, thank you to Robert Jones. We had a super chat from Robert, didn't we? Jose Lopez contributed $1 in super chat. Right on. Thank you, Jose. And of course, our friend Planet Cryos with that upcoming build. When we get the motherboard, we'll do that for fun. And I missed a question. Richard Claiborne had asked earlier if I ever use a third-party antivirus. So very quickly before we go, my answer to this question is always the same. I use the Windows security for my antivirus, and I use a paid version of Malwarebytes, who we have no affiliation with. I don't have any discounts for you. You can often find it cheap at Newegg. It's often on sale. But even at its regular price, it's worth it. Malwarebytes paid. The Malwarebytes free is worthless. Malwarebytes paid subscription with the Microsoft free antivirus is all you need. Now, Acronis says if you buy Acronis, we're giving you the antivirus and malware protection for free, and you don't need Windows security and you don't need Malwarebytes. It's included. I have not actually tested that, but I've kind of waited and let other people do it, and other people say it worked great. But I've not used it myself. But if you're an Acronis user, you can activate the antivirus function of Acronis. It's already included in your subscription. It's supposed to be just as good, if not better, than, it's hard to tell some of these antiviruses apart, quite honestly. But I know Acronis for making good quality product with regards to backup and cloning. And I haven't really been looking to Acronis for my antivirus solution, but that doesn't mean they don't do it great. So that's another alternative as well. But you don't want to rely on free software alone, not if your safety and security is important to you. That's she's telling me.
Memory leak is driving me absolutely
Have you crashed?
I've crashed like 12 times.
Got to get that new computer done for tomorrow. It's still sitting here waiting for me to get it cable managed.
It's crashing on more than one computer. It's not you and it's not your stream. It's YouTube.
It's crashed for me once
broken
today.
Something.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But this is getting me absolutely batty frustrated. So.
Somebody sounds hangry.
Yes.
That's going to wrap it up for us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. And then we'll see if we can put Mara in front of the camera with that managed switch. And then we'll learn a new language, I suppose. Is it family friendly? I don't even know.
You want it to not be?
It might already. I mean, I don't understand what you're saying. These could have been insults you were saying to me. I don't know any of those words you said.
But that's the good thing about, that kind of conversation is you just don't know.
You could completely make fun of me and I'd have no idea.
Totally be
I'm sure that's quite enjoyable for you. Take a number.
Extremely.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you all soon. Until next time, bye for now.